would like to welcome everybody to the regular November scheduled meeting. At this time, we would like to do a moment of silence. And now the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I was supposed to log in or something? Or
Yeah, you gotta put your username in. Sorry about this.
Okay.
Right here, put your username and password. Steve here. Your password. Just flag it.
It says it's incorrect.
Are you good? No?
You go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I feel like, why are we so close?
Keep them over and sit. We can share the hard drive here.
Yeah, we got a big gap here, Gordy.
Yeah. I don't know whether I'm doing or just can't see what I'm doing.
Hey, Judy. Judy, when do you usually do your excuse?
The student recognition.
Huh?
When would we do that?
To excuse. And do we need to,
After we adopt the agenda.
okay, do we need to
Well, I did
announce
use
that
that.
on the
I didn't get
TV?
the
or-
other.
Yeah.
Let's try to use that.
We'll just,
Before we adopt the agenda? Or-
this needs to be
No,
read
it's not.
before we adopt the agenda.
Okay. I need to read this. Or you need to read this, one of us need to read this. Okay, I know you all have noticed the little Scott robot on the end of the thing there that's just like super creepy, but that's okay. So, anyway, I am going to go ahead and read the notice on here. It's the teleconference notice. Due to a scheduling conflict, it is anticipated that the District 2 representative will participate in this meeting via an audio and video teleconference. The primary location of the meeting will continue to be at the Board of Education Conference Room located at 1600 West Lexington Avenue, Winchester, Kentucky. Additionally, the District 2 representative will be teleconferencing from 8 Rue. Where are you? I'm sorry.
Strasburg branch.
Okay. So, is that all we have to do, Ms. Hicks, or does that just need to be acknowledged? And
Yes.
okay, thank you. Okay, first thing on the agenda is adoption of the agenda.
I would ask if we could, I'd like to make an amendment to item number 15. There's an amount there for the pay application. It shows at $420,345.61. That amount is not the actual, that's the amount of the contract. The actual pay request is $246,061.13. Then I would request also that you take item number, I'd like to table item number 5 to a later meeting. We need to do a little more work on that before we present that to the board. So I would ask that that one would be tabled.
Does anyone else have any other changes? No?
I move to adopt with changes.
Okay, motion by Mr. Peridot.
To do what?
Adopt the agenda with the changes.
As amended.
As amended.
Second.
Second by Ms. Hicks. All those in favor say aye.
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 Oh, yeah. Motion carries 4-0 with Dr. Kudak absent.
I move that we excuse Dr. Kudak from the meeting.
Second.
Motion by, here, you write this down, all you do, I need to write it, okay. motion to excuse Dr. Kudak by Ms. Hicks, seconded by Mr. Peridot. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Motion carries 4-0. Okay, and then second thing on the agenda is approval of minutes for the September 25th, 2018 special meeting and October 23rd, 2018 regular meeting.
I was not present at the October 23rd regular meeting. I will not be voting on those.
No. So I guess we need to table that to,
Thanks.
Until you have 3 people who attended the meeting here. Okay, I move that we table the minutes of the October 23rd, 2018 regular meeting.
second. Okay, a motion to table the October 23rd, 2018 regular minutes by Ms. Hicks, seconded by Ms. Ritchie. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed. Motion carries 4-0. Okay, so that just leaves approval of minutes for the September 25th, 2018 meeting. And I think everybody was here for that one, weren't they?
Move to approve minutes for the September 25th, 2018 meeting.
Okay, motion by Mr. Peridot. I'll second. Seconded by Ms. Ritchie. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed say nay.
I'm not going to vote on those.
Okay, so are you abstaining or just,
I'm not voting.
okay. So
I
motion,
probably should have left the room. But it's okay. I sent some questions that did not get addressed, and
okay.
but they're too lengthy to discuss. So
It'd be a 3 and 5, depending on how they vote.
Well, they've already voted 3 and Ms. Hicks did not vote. So motion passes 3-1, but you didn't
and
vote.
one absence, or 3.
You didn't vote no.
Right.
With, and, okay, 1 absent. Okay, Ms. Hicks, don't confuse me.
Okay. I'm sorry I didn't leave the room. That confused you.
Okay. All right, next is student and staff recognition.
We have a couple of student recognitions tonight. First off, last month we recognized from across the district 5 students who made the Kentucky chapter of the American Choral Directors Association All-State Chorus. And one of the young ladies was ill that night and wasn't able to be with us, so we wanted to recognize her tonight. So we'd ask Miss Takia Thomas to come up front, please. There she is. So, congratulations to Takia. It's already, I thought you were, I saw some video footage of it on Facebook. Excellent work. Congratulations. Each year we have the art contest, the Superintendent's Veterans Day Program Art Contest, in which students from all across the district participate. We'll be posting and in the hallways some of the other school winners in the hallways as we've done in the past. You see those from past years in the hallways, but we want to recognize the overall district Superintendent's Veterans Day Art Contest winner, and that's Greta Gerstenberg. Is Greta here? Yeah, let's go. You'll see Greta's artwork displayed behind where Mr. Heisel seated over there on the easel. It's beautiful work, and and when you look at that, it's a really a different take on Veterans Day. So, excellent work. Congratulations, Greta. And that will be posted in the front of the central office out here. I got one staff recognition. I didn't have him come in, but I just got this. Mr. Keene, our athletic director at GRC, has successfully completed the title of Certified Athletic Administrator. This is a program, a certified program through the National Interscholastic Athletic Administrators Association, and he's completed that program. So I'd like to say congratulations to him. That's also an accredited program by Advanced Ed. So they recognize that program also. So congratulations to Mr. King. That's all the recognition.
Thank you. Next is public comments. None? Okay. So that brings us to number 3, superintendent's report.
A few things here quickly. First off, I'd like to announce the winner of the highest breakfast participation for the month of October. Remember, we started this last month. This month, the winner of at the elementary levels is Shearer Elementary. 97% participation. And at the next level, it's Baker Intermediate at 78% participation. Both those schools were the winners last week, so we haven't made them bring the spoon and fork back in. So if you're asked to bring the spoon and the fork with you to the board meeting, you know that you're not getting it back. It's there, but we ask you to bring it back. A few other things here. Quickly, we began testing for the alternative assessment. That's begun. We've hired a new student advocacy specialist, and they'll be starting on December the 3rd. The curriculum instruction team, along with all the principals, are currently working on the CSIPs and the CDIP. Curriculum instruction is also working with the technology department in the schools to demonstrate the process and practice of coding with the staff and during faculty meetings. Our students will then practice on their own from preschool to 12th grade. We're actually calling it an hour of code in a day because it will take us a little bit longer to work through all 5,600 students throughout the district to do this. The hour of code, it started as a 1-hour introduction to computer science designated to demystify the code to show that anybody can learn the basics to broaden participation in the field of computer science. So that's something that's going to be going on district-wide. In SAT, Annual School Psychology Awareness Week is November 12th through the 16th. The theme for the 2018 School Psychology Week is Unlock Potential, Find Your Password. Our district school psychologists encourage our students, as well as our adults with whom we work, to unlock strengths and resources in order to build their academic and social emotional skills, promote personal growth and resilience, and nurture a sense of belonging and well-being. They help us set goals and lead discussions to help children and adults create the connections necessary for skill building within our district. I'd like to ask you to please take a moment to show some appreciation for our school psychologists, Lori Hall, Allison Nelson, Paige Hale, Jill Rogers, and Hillary Moore. On an upcoming special event on December 14th, Mr. Travis Freeman, he was the inspiration for the movie 21 Blast. He will speak with interested students aged 14 through 21 at GRC, and working with them and inspiring them to set goals for themselves. Mr. Freeman, as a native Kentuckian and as a teen, he lost his sight, but eventually overcame the challenges of his disability and continues to live his dream of playing football. Recently, our professional learning opportunities of youth mental health first aid by KDE and self-care trauma responsiveness by Mountain Care Center was provided for all Clark County employees on November the 5th. This next week, special ed teachers and district support staff representing the preschool, Concrete, Strode, Baker, and GRC will attend the annual Fall Kentucky Council for Exceptional Children Conference in Louisville. Topics there being discussed include co-teaching achievement gaps, community to work transitional programs, alternate assessments, and transportation. Our migrant staff attended the regional PAC meeting on November the 8th, and they're currently attending the annual migrant education program, Fall Academy in Bowling Green. The topics there that they're working on there include preschool screener, how to use it authentically and effectively, early literacy basics, immigration policies, new recruiting strategies, and immigrant rights, and there are several other areas. In our ELL, the district recently employed, we just hired a Remember I told you that we created the 2 spots as growth teachers. An ESL teacher has begun at GRC. They're working to address the educational needs of our English language learners, and we do have a position that we're still interviewing for a second position in that. That's all I have right now.
Great. Okay. And we are on number 4, Student Learning and Instructional Services, Student Achievement Reports. And that brings us to Mr. Mounts.
Thank you all. I will just hit the highlights, and then if you have questions, I'll be happy to take any questions that you may have. Overall, we were pleased with certain results at Baker Intermediate. If you'll direct your attention to the chart there on the Clear Touch. Overall, we had an index of 83.1 proficiency. When you look at the state, and you kind of see where that number, what that means. I know there's a lot of, these new numbers and new system. When you look at all the middle schools, that 83.1 ranks 50th among 305 middle schools. So we are seeing our students gain proficiency. Our separate academic indicator is 66.2 versus the cut score of 55. Our growth indicator was 15.8 versus 9.5 cut score. So we're above the state cut scores, and we'll break this down in the slides ahead. Reading was 80.6, math 85.5, indicator score, proficiency score, like I said, was 83.1. You see the breakdown with each of the separate academic scores. We are tested in social studies in the 5th grade as well as writing for an overall separate academic index of 66.2. You see the growth score there, averaged out between reading and math is 15.8, which leads us to an overall how well we did with reading and math as a school. The bar chart you see there is a 3-year glimpse of how Baker has performed in reading. You can see that reading is 63.2, which is the highest in our school's short history. Math, 65% of our students were proficient and distinguished, and again, that's growth in our school's short history. When you break down this data even more, so I went back and looked at how students performed when they came to us. For example, in mathematics, when those students were in 4th grade and they came to Baker, they came to us, about 12% of those students were novice. When those students left in mathematics to go to Campbell this year, we had 3% novice. So we were able to slash our novice in half in 2 short years. Reading was not that great, but we still slashed novice. So if you take a look at the next slide, again, reading, it's a 3-year high, and our novice was a 3-year low. And then it breaks down our subgroups for reading. We were able to make gains with male students. When I say gains, I'm referring to the percentage of proficient distinguished. Gains with female in reading, gains in free and reduced lunch. Students with disability, we were classified as a TSI school due to our performance of our students with disability. If you look at that 3-year snapshot of Baker Intermediate, even though and it's the bottom right there, even though our proficient and distinguished increased, kind of the bottom fell out of novice, and that apprentice decreased and novice increased. So I'll talk to you what we're doing to address that here in just a moment. Our white students saw gains in reading. African Americans saw gains in reading. Hispanic students, you can check that out. Our Hispanic students performed very well in all subject areas tested comparatively. Okay, 2 or more students. Moving on to page 11, which is mathematics. Again, 65% of our students scored at the proficient and distinguished level. And then, I won't read these to you, but you can see how the green and blue, again, gains for male, female, free and reduced lunch, disability, that novice flared up again, and proficient and distinguished decreased. You can move on to the next slide there. Increases among white students. African Americans stayed roughly the same, slight increases in novice. Hispanic students scored in the, almost over 60% of our Hispanic students scored proficient and distinguished within mathematics. You see 2 or more races. So we've made great gains in proficiency, and steady gains, I should say, great gains in proficiency. We're proud of our work that we've done in mathematics and as well as reading. If you look at social studies, our social studies slightly dropped a percentage or so from 2017 to 2018. You can see our subgroups in the next slide there. Our disability students, again, it's an area of concern, as well as African American. In social studies, our Hispanic students outperform all students in social studies. So we have some work to do in social studies. I have 8 dedicated teachers in 5th grade social studies, as well as 3 special education collaborators. And really it's a school-wide effort, but they're working hard. In writing, this continues to be our Achilles heel. Our writing scores, if you take a look at the trends over 3 years, our writing scores have declined. This is very frustrating. I think I've shared it with many folks. I feel like we throw the kitchen sink at writing, and we just continue to score 33, 34, 35% of our students in proficient and distinguished category. We've had some heartfelt conversations, some tense conversations. People been mad at me, been mad at one another. They're all working and rowing in the same direction, and we've just backed it up, and we're going back to basic sentence structure and grammar because we've tried everything. We're doing a lot of PD this year with LDC and artful reading, and we're going to continue to own our results and work to get better. So if you look at our subgroups, again, something that stood out to me, Hispanic students are performing at or above all students. And you can see the results of the other subgroups there. So overall, we're pleased with our reading and math. We have some work to do in social studies as well as writing, and in particular students, African American students and students with disability.
Any questions for Mr. Nance?
Always.
Go for it.
Let me go first.
Yeah, go ahead.
On the growth,
Yes, ma'am.
that early slide, I do not understand growth, no matter how much I read about how they describe it. Can you interpret growth for me?
No, I cannot.
Okay, so I'm not the only one who doesn't understand.
You are not the only one, and in fact, there's been a lot of conversations at the state. I can refer to Ms. Bush here. She's attended a whole day on it, I believe.
Last Wednesday, the commissioner had his meeting together, and there was a lot of growth for next year because no one can understand it. Mathematically, they say that it works, but in reality, if you take a student and reject them for 2 years and they lose points for being proficient or distinguished, it doesn't make any sense.
They still had growth.
So,
Okay.
as of right now, it is being reconstructed.
On the writing, what are you doing differently this year than last year and or previous years related to writing instruction?
Well, with professional development, we were part of the Striving Readers Grant. I have 12 teachers who are involved in that grant. LDC has been very, very intense, almost like a college course. They meet weekly through webcast. and then they implement what they learn. What have we done differently in terms of instruction? We have, like I said, we've looked at our curriculum map. You know, I can get on the wiki, or I can reference, you know, ask colleagues as far as a curriculum map for math, science, social studies. Writing, it's a little more vague, so we've created our own timelines, so we can compare data. We've had tuning protocol, professional developments, reflective writing. This is all within this, between August and now. Reflective writing as well as specific feedback. We're working on our rubrics. We hired a curriculum coach who is working closely with our teachers, modeling best practice in writing. And when I say we went back to sentence structure, from the grammatics of it, from capitalization,
About as far
punctuation.
as diagramming sentences.
We're doing that, yes. And really trying to align internally, some conversations. I just basically met one-on-one with teachers, and I said, how are you teaching writing? What are you doing in October with writing? What are you doing in February with writing? And we soon realized that the answers varied. 2 or 3 teachers were doing this, so we've aligned and tightened internally. Like I said, Ms. East, I feel like we've thrown the kitchen sink at it, and we've produced 35% the last 3 years. So I will tell you that on the 28th of November, being labeled a TSI school, we are going to visit Carter County schools, and one of the things that I requested that we observe is not only writing, but as well as their social studies and I guess systems they have in place for teaching students with disabilities. I tried to cover the whole gamut of our areas of growth when we do the site visit to Carter County.
Thank you.
I'm good.
Mr. Heisel?
I'm good, thank you.
All right, thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Bell.
All right, next is Concord Elementary School.
All right, so I, along with Mr. Mounts, I'm just going to go over the highlights of our scores. You see on the first slide on page 2, our proficiency, we were 72.7. Our separate academic was 52.9, and our growth was 15.9. So we did make all of the cut scores. One thing I am proud of is that we were 12 points over our proficiency cut score. So that's something very exciting for us. If you look at the next one, our reading, we were, as far as proficiency, we were 74. Math is 71.4, and our separate academic indicator was 72.7. The next one for science, you can see, is 52.9. And then our growth for reading and math, you can see reading was 16.8, math is 15, and then our growth indicator was 15.9. So on page 6, this is something that we are proud of, the work that we put into last year. Some plans that we put together and worked together. You can see that we went from 40.6 in 2017 to 55% proficient and distinguished in reading. So that was a 14.4 gain in reading. For math, we increased 4.6 points, so we went from 43.4 to 48 in math. And then in science, we were 24.1 proficient and distinguished. So the next slide kind of breaks it down. You can see that we have decreased our novice and increased our proficient and distinguished tremendously. So when I look at that, I notice, we went from 28.8 novice students in 2017 to 18. So we decreased that by 10 percentage points. We now have 55% proficient and distinguished in reading. So when I first took over Concrete, that was something that I really looked at was, how are our students performing? And I can definitely say that we've put plans in place that have been successful and continue to be so. The next one, you can see we are decreasing novice in every area, male, female, our free and reduced lunch. Our disability category, again, we are a TSI school for disability, but one thing to look at is that we decreased our novice in disabilities in 2017 from 42.9 to 36.6. We increased our distinguished, our students with disabilities, from 7.1 to 12.2. So we are making gains, and we are, again, they are working very hard. If you combine, one of the things that I did is I combined in 2017 our novice and apprentice scores. We were 76.2, and we decreased that to 56.1. So we're moving and doing good things. For math, again, you can see on the next. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. There we go. So on math, again, we decreased novice as well, so 17.8 in 2017 to 12%. The thing about math that we did notice, and we did increase our proficient and distinguished, but it seems that a lot of our students landed in that apprentice range, and so that's kind of some conversations that we're going to have. We're moving them out of novice, but they're just not quite to that proficient and distinguished yet, so those are some conversations that we're going to have. Again, if you look at our subgroups, we decreased novice again in every area, every subgroup. So our male and female free and reduced lunch was decreased. Again, our disability category, in 2017 we were 40.5% novice, and we decreased that to 31.7. We had 0 novice in 2017 in that disability category, and we were 2.4% distinguished there. Again, on the next page, you'll see our white, African American, and our Hispanic population. So we have decreased the novice in those areas as well. One of the things, that we are proud of is that, our reading instruction was kind of collaboratively together. We knew that we had to do something different. And I think as a staff, we all just kind of came together and realized that we wanted our students reading, writing, and talking. And so that's what we do. Kids, they're reading books every single day. They're working together. They're talking. They're responding to what they're reading. We have what's called a WIN time, which is called What I Need. That's 45 minutes, 5 days a week. And that's exactly what they get, is what I need. So we are data driven. We focus on what they need at that time, and we make plans, around that. So that's all I have. Anything else?
Ms. Hicks?
Somebody else could go first this time.
Mr. Perry?
I have nothing, thank you.
Mr. Heisel?
No, thank you.
With your reading and the emphasis on reading, where are you on students reading below grade level?
Well, actually, students below grade level, as of last year, we were about 55% of our population was reading below grade level. At the beginning of the year, we were at 38%. I just looked at that today.
Okay.
So we have a strong belief, and I will say, in guided reading instruction. So students are at small group tables, no more than 6 kids every day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr.
I think with the high school, it's so much different, probably different than what you're used to seeing or that you've ever seen before. Basically there's 3 things: proficiency, transition, and graduation rate. So rather than me just sit here and elaborate on this, there's not a whole lot to compare it to. The proficiency was based upon the ACT test the juniors took last year. So when you kind of look and compare that back to previous years, there's not a whole lot you can really compare. Because there's a difference in EOCs versus ACT. Graduation rate is still good. I think we're top.
Yeah, 15.
Tied for 15th in the state as far as the graduation rate, so that's a plus. These other numbers look low, in my opinion, but when you start looking at them, it's just it's totally different. It's very ACT driven. The new transition going into that this year or over the next couple of years is going to be tough. The new reg says that you have to be transition ready in order to graduate. We've got a lot of kids, or the population of kids is probably right now not going to fall in any category. So there's a lot of work that's going to have to take place over the next 4 years as far as transition goes, to meet one of those areas within the transition rating measurement. Proficiency still this year, when you see scores next year, still goes back to the ACT. It's kind of, we're one test driven right now, pretty much.
So is that ACT for at the junior level, senior level, or both?
It is junior level for proficiency. For the transition, it could be any level in high school now, which is a little bit of a help. So. I think that's, when you look at it, it's with proficiency. I know you can take the test multiple times over and over until you become proficient. If you still don't become proficient on the test, the board has to develop policies where they can appeal to the board in order to graduate, but there is no appeal for transition. If you get into that, if you get into the data a little bit, I mean, we've got major subgroup populations that's popping up, traumas, just like everybody else. Those populations are growing. Special education population, I know, is slated to probably pick up another 20 going into next school year. So those are on the radar. So it's tough when you're looking at the ACT to cut into those gap groups for ACT. I think with a lot of writing, if you look at the writing, there is a little bit of comparison for it. But I think what hurt us on that, and I'll own that one, I'll out, we changed what we were doing to be more in alignment with the district, which was probably a mistake. We should have kept on the path we were going. It's easier for me to answer questions if you've got questions or something specific you want to ask.
It's yours or Scott's turn to go first.
Mr. Heisel?
No.
Mr. Baird?
I'm good.
Ms. Hicks?
You don't have anything?
Not right now. Okay. I don't think so.
What's your special population at the high school? Special needs? Or special ed, what you call it?
It's growing big time. I mean, I think part of we've had a lot of turnover probably in staff. Some people have gotten promoted, other staff took jobs in other districts, basically got promotions, but had a lot of turnover. We've got a relatively young staff, but it's a staff that needs a lot of training. We were the model at one time for a lot of districts that came to look at what we were doing with the coaching. But since then, those teams are no longer together. So that's something that we're hoping to get back together. Probably professional development's an area that, of course, there was no PD money this year, but I think if we're going to improve, not just in special ed, but probably in those gap populations, we've got to get out of Clark County for the high schools. We've got to go to other areas to look. You know, and I think that it's my belief, if you keep doing the same thing, you're going to get the same results. So we need new ideas, different ways to attack some of those problems.
Are there some model schools that we used to be? Are there some of those that we can?
There are some that's still around. I mean, when you start looking at the high school, I know Josh mentioned the hub school out there, but for us, I think what we're trying to find is some high schools that really have our same demographics, and they're not really so much around, I don't think, in Kentucky as part of the problem. None that are really successful. If you go back and look in the past at the data, you know, GRC was ahead of us, I think, every high school in Fayette County in every area except for ACT. That was the only area that we could not surpass those high schools with. And right now, I'm not sure. I think they're getting a little bit of a leg up on some of the stuff that we're doing. On a positive note, I think we were chosen to go to present at the Secondary School Redesign Conference in California in February, which is a big honor. But still yet, I think we've got to get out and seek some outside groups or outside schools, maybe outside Kentucky or something, to find ideas of people that are successful with this.
Did you ask him what percent student body? Is that where you were headed?
Yes.
That question? About 10%.
So on the transition, you were making comments about the transitions part. What sort of supports are needed there, or how do you address what you see coming in the transition, lack thereof?
There are a group. There's what I would consider a group of kids. You've got kids in a pretty healthy group, a large number of kids out there that aren't in a career pathway. They're not probably college-bound students. We've got to find something for those kids. And I'm at a little bit of a loss. We're exploring, trying to add new pathways, but you've got to find something that kids gravitate towards, because most of those kids are not, I just don't, we can push and push ACT prep, trying to prepare them, but if they're not bought into it or don't feel the desire that they're going to go to college, then we're just spinning our wheels. So I think we've got to find innovative pathways out there that are things that kids like or kids are interested in. So probably we've got to do some expansion there. We need to look and probably really get on board with what I would say is a transition career coach, somebody that can get out and work. One of the pathways in there is apprenticeships that we need to be pushing. There's an area for that could help somewhat, I think.
I may interject just to to let you be aware of. One of the things that we had done, knowing that transition was going to be a concern moving into this year, is we do have a special education teacher that's working specifically with community to work transition, and getting our students to identify areas of potential work in place, and that they've already started. We have had series of students to go to Carl Perkins. They're going to the universities and going through interviewing process. She works with them individually throughout the week to develop interviewing skills. And we're at that point now where we're just getting ready to start identifying specific businesses to where those students can go and actually learn a job responsibility and role. So that is in place. So that will help address the population of students with disabilities.
How many students are involved in that?
Well, you're starting off with 20, and then you're adding on. So that's where we are at this moment.
I think something else that we've got to get a little better at is finding some of these and get an earlier introduction to some of these career paths at the middle school at a high level. And they're starting to do some of those things. Mr. Bowen and Mr. Howard are working together on some things there to start some career paths and get some students some introduction to those things at an earlier age, so that when they get to the high school, they're more able to go into those paths instead of having to do the exploration at the high school level.
if you look at some of the other indicators, it's basically for the transitions, either you get it on the ACT benchmark, you pass you get pass 2 dual credit or 2 AP. Well, in all intents and purposes, probably with 90% likelihood, you're talking the same groups of kids that are all aligned there, and so if ACT is going to come up, it's got to be in curriculum development. I mean, I'll be honest with you, you've heard me say this before, we've got to have a true curriculum person who knows 7-12, because Mr. Howard and I work a lot together, but it's the pipeline, we're at the end of the pipeline. And I appreciate the work everybody else does, but when it comes to ACT is totally different. It's a totally different beast. But we've got to get some curriculum assistance.
So, how's the future for GRC?
Well, I think if we can get a handle on transition going forward, I think probably the first thing is tackling proficiency, and that goes back to that's ACT. That's all it is. So we've got to get focused in English and math. That's the 2 big areas. And to me, it's going to be tough. I'm not going to lie. I've always liked a challenge. But I know just looking at what I'm seeing, we've got a lot of work to do. It's going to take a lot of, as I said earlier, I think curriculum work. Reading and math, it's not, I know we've got programs going on in the district, but if you take ACT, it's totally different.
Do we still have the ACT prep class?
We're doing a blitz. We've got 200 kids that'll be what we call the blitz. We'll be doing that. We contracted through a company called Course Prep. Then we're also doing one. We've been out and recruited, I think, about 23 seniors who are shy about roughly 1 to 2 points on one benchmark. And then we're going to blitz those kids ourselves in December, and then we've offered hopefully some incentives to get them there to do that. So that's the first steps.
Plans with writing going forward.
Plans are right to go back to what we were doing.
Thank you for asking that, Ms. Ritchie.
I was so disappointed you didn't.
Well, I knew from his presentation that he was probably going back to what they were doing. That was showing some certain amount of progress.
Yeah.
Is that all? Nothing?
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bowen. Next is Robert Campbell Junior High, Mr. Howard. Is that what I'm saying?
Hello all, how are we?
Peachy.
Peachy. All right, this will be a jaw-breathtaking presentation.
Okay.
If you're ready. Proficiency, we did well. 73, separate indicator pretty well. 63.5, growth was crap. No one can explain it to me though, so
Right.
I'm
So
at a
how
loss.
do we know that it is not great?
On this paper, it says it is. When I look at our individual scores, our individual kids, we moved a lot of students, including our African American students. So I'll hit the kind of highlights of that. As far as reading, proficiency, overall we improved. Our highest ever, over 61% of our kids are proficient in reading. The junior high level, I'll put that up in 7th, 8th grade against most people. That's pretty daggone good. Free and reduced, we improved from 46 to 52. Again, we're at TSI for African Americans, but my numbers do not support that. So I may be on somewhat of a bandwagon, that's slowing me down.
Can you
African
appeal
Americans.
that?
Pardon?
Can you appeal that TSI?
I tried. I sent a very scathing email. I got a very standard response, and then they put together a task force. So I can't claim responsibility for the task force, but I wasn't all that happy because I'm looking at each individual kid, and we're getting growth points for kids that stayed novice. We're getting points for them staying novice, and we're losing points because we moved them from apprentice to proficient. It's because we moved them too quickly or too much. It wasn't sustainable. Well, greatness is sustainable. We prove that all the time. So like I said, I went line by line to 6. I'm I'm fairly well educated, and if you don't,
And you have
Mr.
psychology
Mouse.
background.
I do. I understand statistics. I get it, but I can't, because when I look at African Americans, we increased proficiency in reading from 25 to 35. Specifically, to African Americans, we decreased novice from 35 to 32. Math, we increased proficiency from 18 to 27. We decreased novice, all African Americans from 42 to 32. Writing, we increased proficiency from 21 to 34, and we reduced novice from 11 to, we improved from 11 to 20, and we reduced novice from 46 down to 29%. That's just with African American students. So in every area, we increased proficiency. In every area, we decreased novice.
And that's been our goals for how long in this district? And we
So-
do it and we get penalized?
We celebrated a lot. I didn't penalize our kids, I didn't penalize the staff. We're doing a lot of great work. In fact, we increased almost everything across the board, reading, math, and writing. Make sure everything was on. We've done a lot of work. We've gone back to the basics. We put in a literacy class. Every kid was taught reading and writing strategies for an entire period, the first 9 weeks, something we've never done. That's on top of what we did last year. So really, feedback, forward assessments we're getting from our 8th grade students on demand. My teachers smile a lot more than they did last year. It's a very exciting time, truly. We're not there yet. I'm not going to claim that 32, 34, wherever we're at is something that celebrate too much, but it is a heck of a lot better than 20-something. So going up 14 points in writing, I'll take that. It's pretty solid work. My staff worked extremely hard. Yeah, we improved pretty much everything. So we're going to continue on that path. If someone asks me what we're going to do differently, I would like to get more ideas, kind of what Mr. Boland said. We've already gone to our site visit in Carter County. They're doing some great things. We came back, we've already implemented some of the KEGA strategies that they're extremely heavy on. It's good for diverse learners because it is very much hands-on activities, partner groups. But I think they had 2 African Americans in their entire building. So that's my area of growth. I'm not exactly sure, but we went. So we're going to plan a couple more visits.
What is their grade configuration?
We went to the high school. They didn't.
Okay.
That was the only group, so they're 9-12. So we went to several different types of class. A lot of them were more advanced classes, but I brought 2, 3, 4 teachers up with us, so we got a lot of good experiences. Any other questions? Yeah, I don't know if you even started asking me yet, but I'm going to go with that approach.
I'm good.
Ms. Hicks, are you good?
I'm good. Yes, he
Fair.
covered my
I'm
questions in his
Mr.
presentation.
Heisel?
Nothing, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Next is Share Elementary, Mr. Rose.
I didn't really go through I really wasn't going to go through the PowerPoint. I was just going to mention some numbers.
Please,
Is that okay?
go ahead.
All right.
17, 32.
There you go. And I like doing it by looking at the number of students because I think that says more to me than anything. In our reading, we were 12% novice, which was 20 kids out of 172 tested. 56% proficient distinguished, 96 out of 172 were proficient distinguished. Of those novice students, of the 20, we only had 4 students in 4th grade that were novice in reading. Math, we had 11% novice, which was 19 kids. And we had 63% proficient distinguished, which was 108 out of 172 students tested. We had 12 students in 3rd grade that were novice, which was a big difference from the year before, because we only had 3 the year before. And then in 4th grade, we had 7 students that were novice in math. Our free and reduced lunch, we had 110 students who were free and reduced lunch. We had 52 of those were proficient distinguished. And our disability students, we tested 22 students in 3rd and 4th grade, and 9 of those 22 were proficient distinguished. Math, our free and reduced lunch students, we had 59 students who were proficient and distinguished, and we had 9 of our disability students out of the 22 that were distinguished and proficient in math. Science, which is our separate academic indicator, We had a huge group that were in the apprentice category, but we actually tested 80 students in science, in the 4th grade science, and 30 of those 80 students were proficient and distinguished, and only 6 students were novice. And it was kind of a funny story. One of the students went up to the science teacher last year after the test and said, "I think you taught us the wrong stuff." So they were a little nervous, waiting on the results to come back. But once they, it's all about phenomenon, and so it's like maybe they, But anyway, and it was a good student, which kind of concerned the teacher, but it all turned out pretty good. In our 3rd grade reading, we were above the state in average and proficient distinguished, and we were above the state in distinguished in 4th grade reading. 3rd grade math, we were above the state average. 4th grade, we were above the state average and proficient distinguished in math. In 4th grade, we were below the state average in novice, which was great. We were only 8% novice, where the state was 21.4% novice in science. So. And we were above the state proficient distinguished in science. So those are kind of my highlights, just because I think it's nice sometimes just to hear the numbers of students. Because, when you're talking about a percent, if you really don't know, are you comparing that to the whole school, 406 kids, or are you comparing it to the 4th grade, or are you comparing it to just the group of disability students? One concern I have, although, our students are doing well, is our Hispanic population. We are really starting to see a lot of Hispanic students. That's our largest subgroup next year, besides free and reduced lunch. And, we really would be nice to have a full-time person to help those students, because this year especially, we're going to have a subgroup in 3rd grade of Hispanic students. So, but anyway, that's kind of where I am. Do you have any questions or anything you'd like me to talk more about?
Some question to previous elementary. What is your number of students or percentage of students reading below grade level?
Right now, I would say we're about it would probably be less than 20%. We've gotten to hire 2 full-time reading teachers this year, which has been a huge help. An example: we had a student that came to us in 4th grade that was reading on level A, which is kindergarten, and they just tested this week because they're doing that data wall meetings tomorrow, and he's on level F. So he's made to almost to over 2 years progress. He's still behind. And that's that's one of the things when we talk about the growth, that we don't know what that means sometimes, because we don't know that, are they comparing them to the same group of students who had the same score, or are they comparing them to a different group of students? And of course, it's a different group of students every year. So, we're lucky that we have great teachers. We've been able to maintain our teams pretty well. Some things are working and clicking, but we do. Like I said, with the Hispanic population, we're starting to see a lot more of that, and it would be nice to have someone that was there working with them at all times to get them where they need to be. Anything else?
Mr. Heisel?
No, thank you.
Thank you all.
Next is Strode Station.
Hello, everybody. Strode Station scores look really good. We are about 20 points above the proficiency cut scale for the state. So we're at 80.6. Our separate academic indicator right there is 65.3, which is about 13 points above the state. And our growth is 21.5, again above the state. So our scores look good there. If you go on over, same score, so you can see our reading is 78.1 and our math is 83.1, for an average of 80.6, which is what the indicator score is. Our science score was 65.3. This is the first year for the science test. The majority of our kids did score in the apprentice area of that. So we'll be curious. We put some things in place, kind of like what Mr. Rose said. The kids were like, I'm not sure we learned a lot of that. So we put some different things in place this year to see what turns out next year. You can see our growth scores for our reading, 24, our math, 18.9, and our average of that, of course, is 21.5. What is a little bit alarming on the next thing is our scores did drop, but they're still awesome scores, but they did drop. So we're kind of looking into what could have caused that to happen from the previous year. If you'll look at the next, you'll notice that most of our things are about the same. We do not move a lot, and we have not moved a lot as far as reading with our different levels of novice, apprentice, proficient, distinguished. Especially when you take into account the numbers that those represent from the kids. We have 62.3% of our students this past year that were both proficient and or either proficient or distinguished. On the next slide, you'll see where, once again, there's not a lot of variation. We did increase our novice from the previous year, so that's alarming. That's something that we are going to be looking at. And the page that I'd like to go ahead, that one right there. We have over in just about every single one of our groups, all the way down. If you'll look at it, we have the majority of every category except for African American, which were 12 students, and Hispanic, which were 12 students. 50% of our students scored in the proficient and distinguished range. So over half of our kids scored in that range, except for those two subpopulations. Our math scores look good. 65% were proficient or distinguished this year. Once again, that doesn't look a whole lot different from the previous years, except that we did increase our novice. And that's evident on the next two pages as well with our subpopulations. If you'll look at the, go forward a couple, the thing that shows all of them compared together this particular year. If you look, our proficient and distinguished, over 50% of our kids score proficient and distinguished, except for, again, the African American, that's 12 students, and our disability, which is 24 students. That represents 24 students right there. So we are concerned about, why do we have the increase in novice? So that's something that we are looking at. We are working on writing, although writing is not something that we are tested on. We have the Kentucky Writing Project that went into play this year. Teachers are sharing that. For the first time, I have like a full-time interventionist within the school, and I have some part-time ones also. As far as do we look just at subgroups? No, we look at every single kid at Strode Station, and we look to see what is best for that particular kid. We have a lot of RTI in place. We have a Read to Achieve grant, we have the literacy grant that we also have, and we have I have a math grant. So I have extra people that we utilize and work with our kids.
Good.
They both said no questions, so I have nothing.
How many, you said you had one full-time interventionist and some others. How many others?
I have one full-time that's on staff, and then I have 3 part-time that just came on board on November the 1st. And then my reading grant has a full-time interventionist, and my math grant has a full-time interventionist. But those are both grant people, so.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have a lot of people in place.
And what's your percentage of students reading below grade level?
It's well below 20%.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Last but not least.
Last but not least. Hi, how are you all? Peachy, good.
Okay, I'm not going to go through each page like Mark talked about, like Mark did. I do want to point out a couple things. Do you mind to skip over to page 8? Thanks, Justin. Okay, going through, I know that our proficiency isn't the highest. I mean, I always wanted more. That growth is something that seems to carry us a lot, and I'm so thankful that we scored in that other category. But I wanted to draw your attention to a couple of pages here on 8 and 9 to start. This is reading scores, and what I wanted you to make note of is the different areas in which we decreased our novice. We decreased it with our meals, with our free and reduced lunch, and we're about. Last year, we were about 70% free and reduced lunch. And also our disability, I was really, really pleased with that. You have to also keep in mind, last year we were about 30% special ed. So almost 1 in every 3 child was on an IEP. We're 25% this year, which is about our average. Then if you'll go to page 9, we also decreased it in Caucasian, and again, and I think the common theme tonight has been we've seen a lot of growth in our children that fall in the Hispanic category, and I was very pleased with that. Then, if you don't mind, to jump ahead to page 12 under math. Again, looking at that decrease in novice, it fell under male, free and reduced lunch, female, again under disability, which was a pretty significant, like 30%. And on the next page there, Justin, again under Caucasian, cut it in half, Hispanic, African American, and 2 or more races. We also increased our distinguished in 2 or more races in math. I'm sorry, did I say distinguished? I meant distinguished. We also increased our distinguished among our Hispanic. So those are some things I was really pleased about. One thing that the scores won't show you, 3rd grade has always been the grade that is a little more challenging for our kids. It's their first time taking K-Prep. And so usually they're scared half to death because they don't know what to expect. And so that was one area we saw when we did a breakdown of the scores. We increased our 3rd grade reading distinguished scores by 3.8%. We decreased novice by 7.2%. Our math, our distinguished went up 2.9%, and our math novice decreased by 9.2%, which I was really pleased. 4th grade reading, we went up, we increased 10% in proficiency. But one thing I want to point out, because I know you always ask about writing, we've kind of taken a different approach the last 2 years. We've been using, and I mentioned this to you last year, I believe, about a program called EET, and it's Expanding Expressions Toolkit, and I hope my speech team is very proud I remembered that for a change. I have 2 speech teachers, full-time speech therapists, and they do more collaboration with my whole grade levels. And they really targeted the 3rd grade more than they did any grade last year. And they taught children how to get full thoughts out on paper instead of just giving the bare minimum, going into a little more detail. And I really truly think that that had a lot to do with our 3rd grade, those reading scores. So this year, they did do some, we've increased it more with our 4th grade, and we've also added in our 2nd grade doing that too. So I'm excited to see, it's very easy. Our classroom teachers, they did a quick training for the rest of the staff one day last year in a staff meeting, and the rest of the staff really picked up on it, really liked it. And so we are getting better writing out of our children, and that's something that we're using more each week. Something new too, and this really won't affect K-Prep for a few more years, but when we hired our PE teacher this year, I did some interesting research on the children that can, it sounds crazy, if they can skip, they can read. And I know this sounds crazy, but so when we hired this fellow that came from one of the high schools out of Fayette County, and he's been phenomenal, I said, 10 minutes every day, I want you to do cross-brain activities with our kindergarten children. And so we had them divided up. We divided our kindergarten in half. The first half went 8:30 to 8:40. The next 2 went 8:40 to 8:50. So we started with all of our kindergartners at the beginning of this year.
And I said, every day without fail, 10 minutes for the first 9 weeks. We've narrowed it down now that out of roughly about 100 children, about 75 have mastered those skills. And so now we just have a select group of about 25 kindergartners, and we've now expanded that. We have some first graders going in that we targeted. There's a little 4th grade girl we're having some challenges with. Her retention skills are not real good. And Ms. Kerr, one of my interventionists, started taking her in that group, and she said, you know, we realized there are certain movements she can't do, so we know those neurons are not really working the way they should. So we're trying to get more children in. And these are lessons that our PE teacher came up with on his own. He put together little slides, and they have, one day they might be out on the farm picking berries, or they might be picking apples from the tree and putting them in their basket on the ground, you know. But he's come up with some fabulous things. So I'm really excited to see that. If we'll see some connections with that, you know, as they leave kindergarten and go into 1st grade. So just something new. We've kind of taken a whole different approach. It seems that we're doing more things with a therapy-based approach because we do have so many children on IEPs. You know, my thought is, what do we have to lose right now? So I'm pleased. Our growth is good, and we want to keep heading in that direction. So can I answer any questions for you?
I'm good.
No? Okay. Thanks.
What's your number or percent of students not reading on grade level or reading below
You
grade
mean through the
level?
whole school? I don't have that exact number. I would say, like Rudan said, it's over 20%. I mean, I can't tell. I'd have to look that up and tell you. I don't know. If you know, there's several different things you can look at. Do you want it based on MAP scores? Do you want it based on GRLs? That data can come in lots of different forms.
So you don't, that doesn't have to be reported anywhere. I mean, when you're looking at intervention and stuff, and
Oh,
you're
we
looking
do.
at
We
kids.
look at
so
about 6 or 7 different
use?
areas
Okay.
to determine child for interventions. It's not just one thing.
Okay, but but do you have to indicate anywhere the number of students or the percentage of students reading below grade level?
Like, you mean turn it into in some kind of report?
Or as you're making decisions about intervention?
Oh, we look at, when we do progress monitor, we do.
Okay.
We do, you know, like I said, if you're asking how many children are in interventions, are you asking me that? Because that has to
No,
do
that if a student is in 4th grade but is not reading on 4th grade level by whatever criteria you determine should be the 4th grade level.
Yeah, I can't give you a number off the top of my head. I would say if you're looking school-wide, I would say probably 30% maybe a little more. I don't know, I'll have to go back and double check. I mean, we have a significant number of children in interventions for reading, and we don't really rate everyone. If they've got a need, we're pulling them.
Where you're going, the goal was to get them as they leave 4th grade, to get them on grade level by 4th grade.
Yes.
That's what
Yes.
you're
Just
saying.
asking about 4th grade.
4th grade.
We don't have as many. One thing, one piece of data we've kind of noticed over the past few years at Justice is we had the same, well, consistently 2 interventionists. We've had the same team of 5 for several years. We've pared it down to 2. They've been retired teachers. And we've noticed that we have dismissed, it all seems to be coming together more in 4th grade for our children. Last year was one of our lowest years of children that we still had in interventions in 4th grade for reading. We're noticing that that's when it all kind of comes together. We've used the same different intervention programs and the same methods consistently, and I think that's what's coming together for the kids. This year we've got almost a whole brand new special education team, and I've got 4 out of the 5 that I hired were all outside of Clark County because I wanted something very different this year. And 3 of those 4 came in with a very knowledgeable about using Orton-Gillingham method. And so they are even pulling some children that aren't special ed to help with additional interventions. So, okay, anything else?
Now I know all my kids are picking berries and.
That's right. Yeah, that's it. Thanks.
Yeah, they are. They're working away. Okay. Thank you all. All right, we are on item number 6. Mr. Wilson. consider approval of welding electronic brake press.
And I don't know if y'all got the email, but I emailed this to you. This is kind of a spreadsheet I have enough in. Yes. This was we kind of did a comparison of a 67 ton, a 60 ton, and a 90 ton press brake. And Mr. Hall here is with it. And it also has a couple of letters there that are give some positive points of why we're doing this, and then the other thing is just kind of a letter of what the impact it would and the opinion of how it would help the students in the system. So if you have any questions, you can go ahead and try to answer them, and we'll go from there.
Did you email that to Mr. Heisel?
Yes.
You have this?
Yeah.
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Yeah. I mailed it to everybody. Emailed it.
Oh, where does it come to? Where did I don't have the email.
Oh, you don't?
But this is it, I'm assuming.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, where did it come to?
What do you mean, where did it come?
Which email address did you use?
Oh, I just sent to the whatever one popped up on the district address. That's
Okay.
and it was probably the school one.
Yeah, the Gmail, I don't use
Yes,
it.
ma'am.
I don't use it.
Sorry.
It's fine, thank you.
I don't either, and I don't have it either, so.
Before he starts, you know, principals, but I gave him, there's nothing else on the agenda that the principals really address. It's pretty much construction. I gave them permission to leave a little early, not to get ready, going back to school. That's why they all left at one time. Except for overachievers.
I still got some things on here,
And you can see one of the press brakes is.
I was afraid somebody will get something he did.
So this is 3 separate ones that are
Yes,
being
ma'am.
considered?
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am. And one of them
3 different
78,000.
models, et cetera.
The other two are 87,000. The difference in the other two, which I can let Corey or the other man behind us tell us what the difference is one's a 90 ton, we're getting a 90 ton at the same price as we are a 60 ton or 67. The 67 is 78,000, so there's a what, $9,000 difference there. So.
No, this is the third time these guys have been here. They've answered about everything that I could imagine right there.
Could you say that again, please?
Do you have any questions?
I do. How many students do you anticipate will benefit from utilizing these press brakes if they're purchased?
Well, I mean, every year I have a different number of seniors in my senior class. So last year's senior class, I had every one of my students employed as they graduated except for one. And that individual went on to higher education.
What was the total number?
There's 13 seniors last year. And I have 13 seniors this year.
And in the total program, the kids that he services in the total program, freshman through, for 7 periods, freshman through high school, is about 100 and about 20 kids.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Hicks?
I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
Could I ask you a question?
Yes.
I guess my concern is that it's certainly a lot of money for the investment, and as we've seen with the recent election on other parts of government, probably our ability to have future taxes might be potentially limited. Hard to say at this point in time. So, you know, if this is the investment that you all want to make, you know, it might preclude, you know, the ability to provide funding in other areas in the future. So I guess I just want to ask the question, is this, you know, if it's only $87,000 to invest in the next year, you know, is this what you all want?
Yeah, I mean, we wouldn't be up here if we didn't. But I'm going to add a little bit more to what you just said, Scott. Each year, the state sends the district Last year it was $63,000 for the ATC, okay? Last year we only spent $20,000 of that, okay? And that $40,000 went into the general fund of wherever the district used for, you know. So, and that's been happening year after year. This year it's a little bit more money in that, so I just want you to understand, it's not money actually coming out, it's money that is gradually being repaid and going back into the system.
Ms. Dellis, is that how we account for it?
We receive a vocational, it's SEEK funds for the vocational fund, it's a grant, and we use a lot of that for maintenance for the ATC area side, and then as he said, some of it is used for books and whatever they need, but a lot of it is used for the maintenance and upkeep of the facility itself as well. They do receive a grant that is vocational money, it's from the SEEK and Go Students program.
So, well, if this is approved, would the $87,000 come from a contingency funds or split from the general budget, or where would that come from?
That would be the board's directive. It's being asked out of contingency funds at this point.
And Mr. Wilson, I didn't mean to imply that y'all weren't supporting this, but what I was trying to communicate was that if we did it at this, that probably is going to preclude other things maybe for the rest of the year. I'm just speculating.
I'm going to be real truthful with Mr. Heisel. I don't expect to be back up here the rest of the year.
Okay.
And I understand that this is a very big ticket item. I understand that. And it is a lot of money. So.
Okay. That's all I have. Thank you very much.
This is kind of information overload, getting it just a few minutes beforehand. I'm
Yeah, I understand.
sorry.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I'm very sorry.
It's okay. You were using what you thought was my email address. So the two letters are from.
That's from Mr.
Okay.
Gilliland.
Why were two letters necessary?
Well, one was an afterthought.
Okay, so
The shorter one was, yeah.
Okay,
The first
so
one
the one
was,
on
I was
the-
asked from Mr. Hall
Okay.
here, was to provide a comparison as well.
Okay, so that's the comparison one, and then this was another convincing argument. Okay, thank you.
I'm ready to just wait here. I know she looked through her stuff.
For the differences in the two $87,000 models, the Pro Form and the Base Form, what are the real differences? I mean, I see some differences in measurements here about the Maxo. What? Help me with that.
The ProForm mod is a lower tonnage. It is future upgradable to additional CNC axes, whereas the base form is not. And it also will provide some better positional accuracy and some angle accuracy, which will allow you to get into some more complex parts.
These are all 13 students that graduated with a profession, a job
it makes them, I mean, even more employable because, for example, when the first time I came here, we had Qualex Manufacturing. And so they only had a certain amount of welding jobs that I could place students there. But they had openings for press brake operators that they couldn't fill. And so they talked to me about possibly having a pipeline of students to possibly come and go to work for them. Mr. Gilliland said that, you know, they're open for internships and some jobs potentially over in Mount Sterling and Olympic Steel. PMI, they also have some fabrication jobs as well, where they, you know, students need to know how to run a press brake. There's Tevco, who is, you know, they have a location here in Winchester and in Richmond. They have opportunities there as well.
I'd like to add also, the Olympics been open in Mount Sterling for almost 8 years now, and we have 3 press brakes, and we have yet to hire someone with training. And we would jump at the chance to hire someone with training.
So do y'all train on the job?
We do, through a lot of trial and error, costs a lot of money, and they don't generally get a very in-depth training. It's just to produce certain parts, which also limits our ability as well. If we had a trained operator, someone that had a background in it, it would actually open up the potential for more business for us to be able to, instead of turning down parts that may be too complex for us to do with our current operators, it may be able to help us develop business as well. So we would jump at that opportunity.
Mr. Richard, can I speak?
Sure.
I really can't tell you what a press brake is, but the only thing I can throw in here is I can tell you that over the past few years, the one ATC teacher that's worked tirelessly with me is Mr. Hall. He has gone out of his way to offer dual credit classes through Somerset. So I would, and you asked me earlier about transition, you're the only person that gives us the extra points because your kids have those certifications. I think it's a great opportunity program.
Thank you.
My only concern, and you know, I agree with all that's been said, and Mr. Hall and I talked at great length a few weeks ago about it. My concern is not just with the welding brake, but some of these other items that are also on the agenda tonight, that we appear to be avoiding budgeting for things, and then it becomes that what appears to me, some of these things that would have required considerable discussion, and you all came to us back before the budgeting process happened, so you're not necessarily guilty here, but we have a number of very high dollar items that are coming to us that, in my opinion, should have been discussed prior to the budgeting process, so that they could have been budget items rather than becoming basically unbudgeted requests that have to become contingency requests. And contingency in prior years used to be for emergency unanticipated expenses. But you know, it seems that many of these would have, should have, could have been anticipated expenses to be included in budget rather than being contingent. Does that make sense? You know, I would like to see us get to, you know, the point that the district knows what's coming. You know, we approved the tentative budget in September, and then in October we had considerable requests, and tonight we have considerable requests totaling $446,549. But we've tabled $150,000 worth, which will be coming back, I'm sure, at some point. But that's just part of my concern about the process, not what's being requested, just, you know, that process of doing it.
And also, Ms. Hicks and the rest of the board is, you know, when the ATC, you know, and I've been in this business now 25 years, okay, and I want you to understand that the ATC, where we're at right now, the Perkins money that we get from the federal government, it's only about $29,000. We don't have any other avenue but to come to you all
Yes.
and ask this, to be honest with you, because, and I understand where you're coming from, because you don't want to be hit off the side with budget after budget after budget and stuff, and I appreciate that. So I just want you to understand, we really don't have any other opportunity, because our budget, we really can't sustain on
Yes.
$29,000. If it wasn't for you all, we wouldn't be able to operate, to be honest with you. So, I mean, $29,000, we could spend that in a heartbeat in welding.
Does that include travel?
That includes everything. That's our complete budget, $29,000, that Perkins money that we get. And that's to fund 6 areas.
Yeah.
Health science, and all that stuff. So,
Yes,
I just want you to understand where we're coming from there.
right. I do understand that.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Anything else?
So if you all were getting your wish list here, which of the 3?
Scott, talking, he said that the 60, at the 60, 60,
The upgradable one?
yes.
Anybody like to make a motion on item number 6?
We'll move to approve the Cincinnati Proform, correct, the one you want, Proform 60-ton welding electronic brake press at a price of $87,000.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Peridot, seconded by Ms. Hicks. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries 4-0.
Thank you. Thank you all, and we do appreciate it, I promise you, and I understand where you come from. It's a lot of money.
And I appreciate you all as well. Thanks.
Good luck.
Good luck.
You can come back next month.
I might just do.
All right, item number 7, consider acknowledgement of the 2017-18 financial audit report. Tom Sparks, Summers, McCrary, and Sparks.
Good evening. I'm Tom Sparks with Summers, McCrary, and Sparks, here to present your June 30, 2018 audit. I want to thank the board for allowing our firm to do your audit this year. I want to thank Mr. Christie and Alicia for their help. I will brag on Alicia a little bit. We've seen considerable growth coming through as your auditor, and the number of audit adjustments we've had to propose have gone down this year as compared to last year, and her general knowledge of the financial statements, which continue to get complex, and we'll go through a part of that here in a minute, but she's getting a good grasp of that as well. Hopefully you have before you I'm going to call it a book this year.
This is the largest one in 18 years.
Yes, yes, and I wish I could say it would get smaller. This year's audit is 21 pages bigger than the last year's audit. Part of it is because a new accounting pronouncement that has came into play. I mentioned it last year when I presented the audit. Well, it's here, and it had a substantial financial impact on your financial statements that we'll go through. And that's GASB 75, which is the OPEB, which is the other pension and employee benefit side of the retirement plan that everybody knows is underfunded, and thus is now being reflected on your financial statements.
The mention of OPEB, does it include pension or everything but pension?
The OPEB only includes health, life, and medical. There's a little disability that comes in that side of it.
But not the pension.
Not the pension part. The pension part we already had to put on your financial statements several years ago. That being said, hopefully you have before you a copy of the audit, and I would like to hit the highlights of the audit and then ask me any questions of anything I didn't ask. On page, let me get set up here. On the auditor's opinion, on page 2, the first paragraph at the top, we have opinion. Just want to point out that we issued an unmodified opinion, which is a clean report. Means we didn't have any instances that we'd have to modify our opinion or anything that would have been adversely had to be reflected in your audit. That is the best report that an auditor can issue on a set of financial statements. The next part of the audit is what's called the MD&A. It's pages 4 through 9, and this is the management discussion and analysis. This information is really the board's management viewpoint on how the district did this year. There are some required financial elements in this MD&A that comes from the audited financial statements, and that's the items that I want to go over. So if you turn to page 6, you'll see a nice comparative chart there that has your 2017 and 18, and this is on what I'm going to call, I'm going to get a little accounting technical here, on the full accrual type of basis. And so what that means is you're going to have all this pension liability information, your fixed assets, and all other liabilities. This is not the basis of accounting that you budget on, but it is required to be reflected in your financial statements. But if you look at the comparative there, you can see that your total assets did increase about $11 million. That's primarily from the bond proceeds that you had earlier in the year that had not been expended. This is primarily on the new athletic complex. I think it's about $19 million in bond funds, and that was still sitting in your construction account. The account called deferred outflows, this is directly related to the pension and the OPEB liabilities. These are calculated each and every year by the state's actuary. This is public information. It's on the retirement website, the actuary report, and also the auditor. There's an independent auditor that audits that information. There again, that's all on the retirement website, both on the teacher side and also on the CERS side. The total liabilities, there again, it increased about $16 million. This is directly related to a couple things. You did have a new bond that came in play, but you also had additions that required on the OPEB liability, and then the pension liability went up a little bit, not as much in prior years. And then your deferred inflows, there again, this is related to your the OPEB and the pension part that comes from the actuary report. It did go up about $1.9 million. And then you look at your total net position, and this is kind of a thing that I point districts to or boards to. If you look at your total net position and you see it goes up, it's positive like yours is, $3 million, even in light of all this other stuff, that's a good sign. That's a healthy sign. So even though there's a lot of new negatives reflected on your financial statements because of the OPEB, you still had a positive net position of $3.6 million. The next part of your report I'd like to draw your attention to is on page 7 and 8. Okay, now on page 7, this is the basis of accounting that you really budget on each and every year, and this is on the fund-wide basis, and this is on the modified accrual basis, so it's more of what you're accustomed to. But just want to point out a few things. If you look at your total revenues on your general fund was up about $4.9 million. A lot of this is on behalf monies, and on behalf monies is funds that are paid at the state level for the district, but has to be reflected in your financial statements at year end. On the special revenue side, this is mostly your grant type monies. There was an increase of there about $1 million. And then food service had an increase of about $53,000, and this was primarily from federal reimbursements. As you know, you've gone to a CEP type on your district on your food service, and kind of everybody eats free. So it's very important that the more meals you serve and more kids are eating, the more federal monies that will come in to help sustain the program. On the expense side, let's see. On the expense side, on your general fund, there again, it increased about $4.8 million over the prior year. Again, this is a matching part of the on-behalf expenses, so we pick up the revenue, we also have to pick up the expenses. On the special revenue, it was up about $670,000. This was primarily in the area of instruction. And then food service, they had an increase of an expenses of almost $500,000, and this was in materials and supplies. So overall, I'm going to kind of direct you here out of the MD&A, but over on page 14 of the audit, I want to direct you to your surplus or deficit for the year. So at the bottom of the page, you'll see for each fund, your general fund had a deficit of $5 million. A lot of this was a transfer of monies out of the general fund over for the construction project that you had going on. Your special revenue, it very little change, only like almost $2,000 deficit. And then food service had a deficit of $422,000, which we'll talk about here in a few minutes about the effects of your food service because of the new OPEB adjustment. So it didn't really lose 422, but that is the effect of the OPEB adjustment. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. I'm going to go back to page 11 of your audit. I just want to show you the effects of the new accounting pronouncement. Toward the bottom of that page, you will see an item called Effective Adoption of GASB 75 and C Note 19, which we have in depth. As you can see there, on your general type activities, it had a negative effect of $15 million. And then on your food service, it was $422,000. So there again, this didn't mean that you all lost the money. It's just the effect of this accounting pronouncement had this negative impact on your financial statements. And this is for financial reporting purposes as required by the GASB. Any questions? I'm sorry.
Okay, you said the food service was 422,000.
I'm sorry, 452. I was looking at the
so
screen.
It's not the 422.
No, the 422.
Okay,
yeah,
thank you.
I'm sorry. That's that was just the effect of the pronouncement of number 75. And we will look at the food service here in a minute. On page 21 of your audit is the activity funds. Your activity funds are your school, or fiduciary funds is your school activity funds. And we're going to go into detail on that on page 78, look at each one of them. But this is just a summation of them as of June 30, 2018. The next part of your audit is the notes to the financial statements. They run from page 22 to page 66. There are a few I'd like to bring to your attention. On page 35 is your note number 4, capital assets. The district has had a lot of building programs going on the last several years. Let me get over there to that page. Okay. If you look to toward the top of the page, you can see there's an item called construction in progress. As you know, you've had several things going on with Baker Intermediate, Campbell, and now the new athletic facility. So $7 million was completed last year. That's added to that total. Once those projects get completed, they will move out of the construction in progress and then move into whatever particular line item it may be. Whether it's building, improvements, technology, vehicles, whatever it is, it will come down and add to that line item. But until it does, it'll stay up in the construction in progress. I'll direct your attention to page 37 and 38. We talked about the new bond. At the bottom of page 37, you can see it's called the 2017 B Series bond, $19,255,000. This has an interest rate of 2% to 3.13%, has a maturity date of September of 2017. The next page on page 38.
37, isn't it?
I mean, 37, yeah, I'm sorry, it's not 17, 37, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, that'd be a lot
we'll
of money
take
to come,
that.
yeah, I'd take that, it's already paid off. I want to just point out to you, over the next 5 years, you can see what your liability is going to be to pay off your, your principal interest. And I've told this before, the middle columns that says Kentucky School Construction Commission, this is the part that the state pays for the district. So they make an annual commitment for the district to pay this. They're not necessarily required to, but they have never not funded their portion of this. So that's why it's broken out the two categories. And then at the bottom, right under there, is the capital leases. These are your KISTAs. These are primarily capital leases that are for your buses and some technology equipment. You did have a new one this year, which will be on the, I think, the next page. Yes. At the middle of the page, you had a new capital lease, about $362,000, and then, of course, you have the new bonds of $19 million. So this is kind of a snapshot of your outstanding bonds, your capital leases, and then your sick leave payable. Now, starting on page 45 is note 7 is the pension, and this is the same one that was in your audit last year. I'm just going to direct you to, hang on 1 minute. Let's see, page 45. Just kind of see where you are. So the CERS component of your pension liability is $14,500,000. The district's total liability that the Commonwealth is going to pay is $189,000, or $189 million, excuse me. And that's just Clark County. So you can kind of see the severity of where our pension system is, that this is just Clark County's share of all the retirees, where they are under the current actuary report. Now, note number 8, which starts on page, let's see, 54, I think. This is where the other side of the retirees' monies come in, is what's called the OPEB, which is the other pension employee benefits. This is when a retiree retires their health insurance, their life insurance, their disability. This is this side of the liability. Now, there's two components that has hit your financial statement. One is on the CERS side, and one is on the Kentucky Teachers Retirement side. So on page 54, the CERS side of the OPEB liability is $4.9 million. Now, this is based upon if the investments perform at a 7.5% rate of return. So you can see in this analysis, they give you, if it doesn't 1%, this is what your liability will be, and if it overperforms, this is what it'll be. So this is your range. But the actuary, what they presented in the report for Clark County, the CRS is $4.9 million for the CRS side. Now, if you go to page 56, this is the KTRS side of the OPEB. It's $13,146,000. So there again, this is just another part of this liability that's hit your books. That is, I mean, it's always been out there. It just never had to been reflected on your financial statement until this new accounting standard came about. One more thing, and I'll get off all this accounting stuff. You turn to page 19, note number 19, which is on page get over here,
66.
Yeah, 56.
66.
Or 66, yeah, 60. It starts at 66 and then comes over on, if you go over to page 67. Just want to point, okay, so the impact, and we kind of talked about this earlier, but this is broken out between the food service, which is your business type activities, and the governmental activities, which is your general fund, your special revenue funds. So this year was a one-time hit of the implementation of this accounting standard. This should not be, you won't get hit with this each and every year unless the plan just explodes. But so this is like a one-time hit for the implementation of this accounting standard.
So does any of this, are any fund transfers involved with any of this restatement of net position?
There's no fund transfers involving this, no. No. Let me back up a little bit. I think there was going to be some questions on the food service. Let me go back up to their financial statement. Oh goodness, it's up on page 15. So, you know, just on the surface, if you look at the food service, it says, oh my goodness, this looks terrible. You know, it's in the hole, it's doing awful. Well, that's not really the case. As I kind of explained to Alicia, when we look at this, you have to take out, when you look at their financial statements, you have to take out that deferred outflows, the deferred inflows, and the net liability for the pension and the OPEB. Because those are numbers that you all don't budget, they don't run through your budget, they don't run through your operations, but they are required to be in your audited financial statements. So if you took those out of your financial statement, your food service would have a surplus of about $750,000, where here it reflects about a loss of $966,000. I mean, a deficit.
So where does that 750 show?
Well, that's what I'm saying. You'd have to manipulate, take out. If you look at that financial statement, you take out the deferred outflow, you take out the deferred inflow, and you take out the net pension for liability for OPEB. If you pulled those out.
How do we know to do that?
Well, I'm just explaining.
When we were panicking, when we saw that the food service was $956,000
well, that's what I'm saying.
Deficit.
Yeah.
How did you know what to do?
Well, so for financial statement purposes, this is the way it has to be reported. But one of the good things is with Munis, and Alicia and I talked about that, they've now created code. So like when you look at Fund 51 and you look at the net position, they now have pulled out what I just told you that to do manually. They've pulled out all that OPEB and the pension liability and put it in its own categories so that the real surplus is sitting in its own category. But, you know, that's just part of the implementation of the accounting standard. So I just want to explain to it, it's not as bad as what this looks here in how you operate. But I can't present it any other way than this, because this is the required format.
So all of these net position references and deferred outflows and deferred inflows. Whatever happened to the old basic accounting equation?
Well,
it looks like, the old assets equals liabilities plus equity.
Yeah.
None of this relates?
No. When the new accounting standards came in, then you had to use actuary terms. And these are actuary terms that they use when they report, and they've reported for years. That now is coming to your financial statement. So these are actuarial type accounting terms for timing differences between monies coming in, monies going out, and then this liability that has not been paid for. So
that's not going to change.
No, your financial statements are not going to get any simpler. They're only going to get more complicated. And there's some more things coming down the road that won't have this big of an impact, but it's going to change your financial sum in the next couple of years. Any questions up to this point? Well, I do have some good news. We did, when we did our testing for your government auditing standards, we had no findings this year. We selected the food service program for our federal testing. There was no findings on your federal programs, your food service. Congratulations. Yeah. And so no findings at the board level and at the at your government state requirements and at your federal levels. Now, we did have some management comments. I will direct your attention to page 92, 92 to 95. Get over there real quickly. One positive, you did have a state level finding last year. That was cleaned up this year, so no repeat on that. On the management comment at the board level, we did have some situations where we did find some purchase orders that were not approved prior to the purchase. This is very common. We find this in most of the districts we audit. Not that big a deal. People get out of a hurry and just don't get everything signed timely. Now, on the school activity funds, you'll see this a repeat comment every year. And this was something that kind of popped up when we did our audit review with the state and things they wanted us to look for, and that is inactivity. And so you'll see, like at George Rogers Clark High School, there were some inactive counts. So what that means is if there's no activity in 12 months, then technically that account needs to be closed and moved based upon whatever the sponsor wants to go. And really what that does is it kind of eliminates possible fraud and misappropriation of those accounts that just sit there dormant for a long period of time. So if they're not being used, they need to be reclassified, basically. Now that comment was at George Rogers, Clark, let's see, I think we had it at several districts this year, at Campbell, at Justice. Now Justice, we had a situation with some multiple deposits that did not have the receipt numbers that written on the deposit ticket, which they're required to do. Also at Campbell, we had, Justice, we had some refunds to students were not put on the proper form. Students were getting the refund, but just they didn't use the right form as the Red Book requires. Strode Elementary, they also had some inactive accounts. Baker has some active accounts. And then on the positive side, last year we had some findings relating to some at Conkwright and also at Baker that were not reoccurring. So that means your finance people there were proactive. They got those items taken care of this year. That's quickly kind of a summation of your audit report and the issues and items we had. It's a very good report, nothing alarming. Like I say, every state or every district in the state of Kentucky is going to have this OPEB adjustment on their financial statements. They're all going to look bad, but that's just part of it with the new accounting standards. I think that at this point, the audit has to be submitted to KDE by November the 15th. You have your data collection form that has to be completed. We've started the process on all of that at this point in time. Alicia has submitted her final AFR and it's gotten accepted. It's got accepted, so it's passed. And so you're in good shape to have everything filed and completed on time. Any questions on the audit?
Do all of the notes apply? I mean,
do all the notes
the notes that go from 1 through however far they go?
Yes.
Are
a lot of them are boilerplate, but yes, they all are applicable to a school district.
Okay. Does that mean anything happened with any of them that one point, like the COBRA, did we have any violation of COBRA? Or is it
No.
just in there because it's a note that has to be included?
Yeah, it's a note that has to be included because
Okay.
part of your health insurance, you do have a COBRA plan.
Right.
And with the COBRA plan, it's kind of like an agency situation,
Yes.
even though that employee is not, former employee is not here, but they still are kind of tied to your health insurance until the 18 months.
Right, okay,
Yeah,
Okay.
that's the reason it's in there.
okay.
Any other questions? Again, I want to thank Mr. Christie and Alicia and their staffs. They were very cooperative in helping us while we were on site.
On note 14,
Yes.
page 64. And this is the food service thing, but I'm still not clear on, is the $422,392 amount included in?
Let's see, page 64.
you know,
Okay.
This is
Yeah.
where it's the deficit operating fund balances.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, the food service fund operated at a deficit fund balance, 956,000. Then down here, it had a current year deficit of revenues over expenditures, 422,000. Is that 422,000 included in the 956,000?
Yes, and majority of that's caused by that OPEB
Yes.
adjustment this
Yes.
year, plus the current effect of the, if the CRS was, the actuary said it was underfunded, that proportionate share would also hit proprietary funds. Now, I will, on a bright note, the amount of your overall pension liability this year to last year actually improved. Last year, Clark County's liability was like $207 million, and it's gone down to $189 million. And I think they had put some extra money into the plan, that's what I understand. Any other questions? Thank you.
I'm just double checking my yellow notes. They're all answered. All my yellow notes are covered.
Okay, thank you.
Need a motion? Move to acknowledge the 2017-2018 financial audit report.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Parado, seconded by Ms. Hicks. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed. Motion carries 4-0 with Dr. Kudak absent. And at this time, we are going to take a 10-minute break, if that's okay with you all.
Works for me.
I thought it might. So we will be back at
Scott, don't go to sleep.
8:45.
What time is it there, Scott?
Let's see, it's 2:35.
2:35.
AM or PM?
AM.
AM.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah.
We'll get you to bed by 5.
Yeah, exactly. 8, consider approval for adding 2 new district-wide school resource officers. Mr. Stunt.
Okay, I want to say back in September, we approached the board with a request to add 5 new SRO positions to the district to cover a schedule of schools that we offered the board at that time. At that time, the board graciously approved 3 of those 5 positions. We've implemented those. And now, since we've gotten a handle on what our working budget is, our contingency fund, and what we've rolled over into this new budget, we felt we'd like to bring this back in front of the board for consideration for the additional 2 that we requested back in September. So we would like to request the board's consideration for adding 2 and adhering to the schedule that we proposed to you back in September for SRO covering our schools.
Will this put 1 in every school?
No.
No.
This will put us at 7. No, 7.
That would leave you 2 short to do what we originally wanted to do district-wide. That was 2 at the high school and 1 in each of the other schools.
And leave us 1 short, 1 in every building.
As I recall, Campbell was going to share with Phoenix, Strode, and Baker, and Concrete and Justice were going to share officers. 2 at the high school.
We would need 9 officers to do the original plan. That's putting 2 at the high school because of the size and the number of students, and then 1 at each of the other buildings. This still leaves 1 short, but we can more work.
I'm sorry, I could not
It
hear.
would take 9 to do 1 at each school, and this would put us at 7. So we would still have to work and share.
So everyone will be rotating except the ones at the high school?
No, not once we get to that point.
But for now?
For now, they are, yes.
If you had the 2 additional,
We would
everyone
continue to
still
rotate, and
rotates?
we would rotate them through the high school also, too, because I want all the officers trained at every site. So any new officers that we bring on would work at the high school for a portion of time, too. They need to be exposed to all the schools, and then as we get them trained, then we start moving them into the school where they work more closely with that particular school.
But 7 puts 1 at every campus.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
I mean, you
Yes,
count Phoenix and Campbell being.
And you count Strode and Baker, and you count,
So that's one
that
at
would put
every
1 at each campus.
2 at the high school campus.
Right.
But it's not always the same 2 at the high school, even currently, is that right?
It has been, because we're training new officers, so it's been fairly consistent this last couple of months. But as those officers now are trained, we're able to start moving them out into the rotation of the schools. But if we get these other 2, and once we get everybody trained, they will be assigned areas. But we will still do some rotations, but not on specifically a weekly rotation. I think it's important for the principals to get to know the officer, and the officer to get to know the kids and the staff there. We do the rotation for training purposes to learn the district, and then also to see where each of the officers, as they come in, they all bring specific abilities that may be more suited to certain areas.
The proposal for these 2 officers is for 181 days, 8 hours per day, so
Just when we're
they
in
would
school.
not extend through the summer months or during the holidays and such. Be consistent with our school calendar, their days of employment.
Any more questions? Good. Ms. Hicks, are you good?
My questions were answered in the email. Thank you.
Do you have any questions?
Not any questions. I guess my comments are that it's interesting at School Psychologist Week, and if we analyze the number of psychologists and counselors that we have, from my perspective, I think on the elementary end, that's probably where we ought to add more resources in the elementary schools instead of SROs. Now, that's just my opinion, since we're going to be, in the world we live in, we're limited with the number of funds we have. If we were to invest $95,000, I think it probably would be better spent in the elementary schools on counseling and psychologist support.
Anything else?
I don't have anything else. I'll move to approve adding 2 new district-wide school resource officer positions.
Okay. Motion by Mr. Peridot. I'll second that. Second by Ms. Ritchie. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Say no.
Nay.
Motion fails 2-2. You still need number 9?
Yep.
Okay.
That's the officers.
Okay. All right, we are, number 9, consider approval to purchase vehicles for school resource officers not to exceed $50,000. Donald Stump.
Currently, we have 5 school resource officers, and we're short 2 vehicles. The vehicles that we do have, we were fortunate to receive as a donation from the local sheriff's department. Vehicles that they had surplused and replaced, they gave to us. We refurbished those vehicles. Last year, we purchased 2 vehicles for our SRO, so that we'd like to ask the board to appropriate $50,000 in your contingency fund to either replace 2 SRO vehicles with new vehicles, or to purchase 3 used vehicles, all to be purchased under $50,000.
How do the SROs travel now?
Well, we do have vehicles for them, but they're on their last legs. High mileage. One has a floorboard that's rusted out, that's falling through, that we've been advised not to drive any longer. We have 2 good vehicles that we purchased last year, used. 3 vehicles that we have, as I said, we've been driving for 3-4 years now, and they were surplus by the sheriff's department at the time we received them. So,
some drive personal vehicles, which is a liability to us when they're going from school to school. And then that also means that the vehicles are also used by the SROs when we send counselors out, folks out from the school, into sometimes less than optimal situations, I think, for some counselors to be in. We use our SRO to escort them, they'll use the vehicle. Our biggest thing now is we're now responsible if there is a student that has any kind of charges or anything levied against them, and there's a pickup order issued. If that's a student that's in school at the time the pickup order is issued, then we have to serve the pickup orders, and then by judge's orders we have to transport them to wherever the judge directs us to do, whether that be court here in town, whether that be at a detention center somewhere else in the area for juveniles, or maybe somewhere where they can get some help for other needs psychologically or whatever that might be, and that sometimes is as far away as Louisville. We've had to transport students to Louisville before.
And what was that mode of transportation?
It was in one of the SRO vehicles we have now, fortunately. We left.
But can other board vehicles be used for that? I mean, how often?
No, not to serve pickup orders. It has to be an officer that serves the orders.
But an officer can't drive another board vehicle?
I guess they could, but each of our SROs are equipped with radios so they can dispatch police, local police departments. It's a specialized radio. We have lights that are very expensive to install on
And none
vehicles.
of our other vehicles have that?
No.
Yes, you'd have a truck with headlights.
Yes.
But it's not, it's not designed to transport, you know, students that have been, have pickup orders issued to go into a detention center. Some of those, I mean, there are sometimes that some folks aren't happy about being issued pickup orders and going to a detention center, so you're not, it's not a good condition to have one sitting in the front seat with you. That normally they'd be put in the back seat. Granted, that's not an everyday occurrence, but just right now having to share officers throughout the district, getting them from one school to the other. They're either having to drive their personal vehicle or driving one of the older cars. But they do need transportation, especially since you don't have an officer at each school. They have to go from school to school when there's calls made. And there's not always a vehicle there to share. You know, we had one that we had to go, we had to turn around and come back in, headed to Richmond to pick up some materials for the SROs, and had to turn around Boonesboro and come back. The car was overheating and missing, and they turned and came back, and then waited till one of the other officers came to the school, and they switched cars, borrowed a car, and went and did that.
So if two new vehicles were purchased.
No,
two used, I'm sorry.
Yeah, and it would be
It
used.
says two new, three used or two new.
Well, you mean the ones we're proposing, or I thought you
Yes.
were referring to the ones last
No.
year that we purchased.
No, we would be looking at used vehicles, I can tell you that, because we can get 3 for that, and that would cover our needs. 3 vehicles would cover our needs at this time.
Okay, so do these replace the
Yes.
ones that have the falling out floorboard
Yes.
or whatever?
We would
Yes.
come back to you with a surplus request.
When we got the last 2, we surplus 2 of the vehicles, and these would surplus some additional vehicles.
And I would say it really comes down to what the board's preference is and how we supply our school resource officers. I know our resource officers feel very strongly that having marked cars on our school grounds with lights is a benefit. It lets folks know that there's a presence in that school and they're there. If you prefer that they drive their personal vehicles, I will tell you that if we don't replace the 3 that we've mentioned, by the end of the year, 2 of our resource officers will be driving their own vehicles.
Can I ask you a question? Do we have any knowledge of potential used vehicle pipeline that might be available from the sheriff's department as they surplus vehicles?
That's how
quality of what they might surplus.
Well, yeah, that's how we obtained the 3 that we're driving now, and when we got them, they were surplus by the sheriff's department with very high mileage, over 200,000 miles on each vehicle. And we,
So they wait.
and we
So they get
refurbished
pretty
those.
high.
Yeah, they were really high mileage vehicles.
And checking with the city and the county, there's none coming down the pipeline right now. As far as those used vehicles, we checked that first. But we can get those, we get those at no cost, so that's obviously the first place we're gonna go to.
But there is a cost. We have to replace lights and radios and such on these vehicles. They don't come with lights and vehicles, they take their lights off. And-
But
and
we would
mark
have to
them.
do that with others that we purchase as well.
That's
right?
correct. Yeah, that's correct.
So the
We'll have some
cost.
lights on these surplus vehicles that we'll pull off before, we won't surplus them with the lights and stuff. We'll strip them before we surplus them.
But this is just the approximate cost of the vehicle without any enhancements.
Well, I think we could probably, within the $50,000 buy 3 used vehicles, and with that money, equip them with lights and radios.
Then also, any additional need could come from our safe schools, and we cover a lot of that stuff. The equipment is covered through safe schools. I've not been to the board for much in the way of equipment. We covered that through the safe schools grant that we get.
But this request is from general fund.
Yes.
Right.
Which is really contingent, this is a contingency request, right?
That's correct. We purchase vehicles through the
State bid
bid list, so we've been able to obtain some pretty high-quality, low-mileage vehicles for $15,000, $16,000.
Could you clarify, you just mentioned about the Safe School grant. I believe the vehicles last year were somehow funded by that. Is that money not available this year for that purpose?
To save the district some money in general fund, I've moved some of the things that was being paid out of general fund, such as some security salaries and some things like that. I've moved them over to the Safe Schools to ease the general fund of the district.
Almost 40,000.
Yeah, that we're paying out of Safe Schools that we've not been, that has been being paid out of the general fund, but we're paying out of Safe Schools now.
On this year's budget. This is the first year that we've done that.
Because we did have a little bit of an increase in the budget, so I moved some of the securities folks over their pay over to the Safe Schools grant.
Okay, thank you.
Motion would be in order to consider approval to purchase vehicles for school resource officers not to exceed $50,000. Does anybody like to make that motion?
I'll make that motion as stated.
Motion by Mr. Peridot. I'll second that. Second by Ms. Ritchie. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. You were aye, yes? Okay. So motion passes 4-0 with Dr. Kudak absent. Okay. Number 10, consider approval of air conditioning system proposals for the Robert D. Campbell Library.
Most recently, we've had the air conditioning that supplies the library at Campbell die on us. Both compressors went into fail. It's a rather large unit. It's about a 30-ton unit. It needs to be replaced. It's a train unit, so we're proposing to the board what we feel to be the most economical and efficient proposal, and that's to replace the condensing unit on the roof with a train unit, and to replace the coils in the interior unit in the boiler's room with the new coil. The cost for both the equipment and the install, as quoted by Thermal Equipment, was roughly $31,504. So we would ask the board to consider replacement of that air conditioning unit on Campbell Middle School.
My knowledge, this is the unit that was put on there when the library was built.
It was. It was new to the library, which is about 18 years ago. Now, we've also given
when the new library, when it was the new library then?
When it was the new library.
I mean, it used to be the old library location, and then they revamped, and then when they built the new library, it was...
That's correct.
Back.
Well, and a further note, the replacement of the two compressors that are out in the condensing unit on the roof, the quote for that was roughly $14,000, but it uses R22 free refrigerant. In 2 years, that will be banned, so we're recommending that we replace it with 410A units and replace the whole condensing unit for that purpose. But I also gave you that quote in your packet for the replacement of those compressors, but we're not recommending that we go that route.
So during the renovation of Campbell, was any of that segment of the building?
No.
Nothing.
Nothing in the library or H-wing, the circle area around the gym, none of that.
None of that was.
No, that unit's about 18 years old and it is dead.
Lighting was, all that was
okay.
done. Right. And water conservation, everything else was done, but there was no HVAC.
Okay. We haven't been significantly pressured to do this because now we're in heating season, but we'd like to go ahead and start that replacement, anticipating that we're going to have a short winter.
That's fine.
Thank you.
Yeah, not to mention what occurred this morning.
Superintendent recommendation is thermal equipment. That's what you're saying. 31.
They're on the state bid list, and HMC we had them quote to install too, and they were significantly higher. I've also included that in the package. And both of those companies are on the state bid list.
So do these things does this equipment have to work together?
Yes, it's all Trane equipment.
It's all Trane,
And we're
okay.
going to stay with Trane because we're not replacing the entire
Okay.
system.
Oh,
That would be
I thought-
another $30,000.
So what- the thermal quote, I thought the,
Thermal coat is
are
the cheapest.
Trane and thermal the same thing?
No, thermal
Okay, I
is
thought when,
the installer.
oh, so Trane is not installing the
No, they're
Trane
just selling
equipment?
equipment. The 22,000 was for the equipment only, and then the 9,000 something was for the installation.
Right, okay, but do other people know how to install Trane equipment?
Yes, thermal and HMC. Most vendors do.
Okay.
They just have different quotes for that, and thermal was significantly lower than the other quotes we obtained.
Half. Thermal was half the installation.
Yeah, I saw that, but I just didn't understand. Does Trane not do their own install?
No.
Okay.
They just sell the equipment.
Any more questions or discussion? Anyone like to make a motion?
I move that we approve the air conditioning system proposals for the Robert D. Campbell Library at a cost of $31,504.40 for new equipment. Does that include the labor? Or is
Yes.
that just the labor?
No, that's labor
Okay.
and 31,000 covers labor and equipment.
For equipment and installation labor.
Should we put the name of the company in there? We got to be as well, Thermal Equipment Service.
We'll be fine with
Should we? I mean, it's your motion, I mean.
Okay.
To approve thermal equipment service.
Thermal's installation quote and the Trane equipment quote for a total of $31,504.40.
Motion by Ms. Hicks.
Second.
Second by Mr. Peridot. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, motion carries 4-0 with Dr. Kudak absent. Number 11, consider approval of proposed annual owner and contractor agreement dated July 23rd, 2014 between the Clark County Board of Education and Duke's Roofing. An exterior construction for the middle school roof recoat project.
As the board is aware, we engaged in a contractual agreement with Duke's Roofing in 2014 to recoat, resurface the roof, metal roof on top of Baker, what is now Baker Intermediate School. We ran into some difficulties within that first year of installation, in which the product that Duke's Roofing used was, what word am I looking for? It didn't stick to the roof. It was inappropriate, and Duke's
Inferior.
Inferior. Thank you. And currently, there's still pending federal legislation and litigation between Duke's Roofing and Lexus Coatings. But we approached the board most recently and requested your permission to engage with Duke's Roofing attorney to come to some resolve and to draft an amendment to our contract that was initiated back in 2014. So during the last several months, our board attorney and Duke's attorney has been negotiating settlement, and what is before you is a draft of what is recommended for resolving the dispute. Basically, it changes the manufacturer of the product that will be applied to Baker's roof from Lexus to Tops. In the recent past, excuse me, Duke's Roofing did a sample testing of the Tops product on Baker roof to test for adherence. It worked, it passed their test, so Tops now is taking the position that if their product is applied appropriately, they will honor the 10-year warranty that was originally assumed by Lexus Coating, and Duke's is offered to, in this agreement, to extend their warranty 1 year beyond the finished date for the roof for their installation and labor. So It would also include the $7,600 some dollars, $7,400, I have the exact figure here if you're interested, but that the board previously approved to change the color from green to blue on that roof. That came out, you've already approved that to come out of your contingency fund. But there is roughly $11,000 left on that BG under that contingency, so that's where we were proposing to take the money from. It would not come out of your contingency, it would come out of the contingency on the BG for that roof project. Currently, there's roughly $71,000 remaining on that BG that's not been appropriated to the contractor. Part of this addendum or this agreement would require the board to turn that amount over to the contractors upon the completion of the project, which also includes, I'll remind you, all of the downspouts and guttering for that building as well. That would be blue.
When would this project be performed?
We're not sure at this point, because as we understand that we need to have a week of 60-degree weather, and I don't see that happening soon. So I would say sometime early spring.
Mr. Elkins, this agreement meet your approval?
It does, and we actually came to this resolution a number of months ago, but you know, credit to Donald Stump, Mr. Christie, for insisting that the contractor demonstrate that they still had effective performance bonds and liability insurance certificates to proceed, and to make sure that we got you know, some written evidence of a warranty from top. So I think you're ready to go anytime.
So if it cracks up, they're going to come back and replace it again. We'll get to do this again.
Correct.
Okay.
Josh is happy because it's Bulldog blue.
I've never seen a blue bulldog.
There's one hanging on the wall at Baker's you walk in. Right over Josh's desk, as I recall.
Okay, any more questions, discussion? No. Would anyone like to make a motion?
I'll move to approve the proposed addendum to owner and contract agreement dated July 23rd, 2014 between the Clark County Board of Education and Dukes Roofing and Exterior Construction for the middle school roof recoat project, BG 13-251.
Should it be intermediate school rather than middle school?
Yes.
Good call.
Well, I don't know. I have to refer that to the attorney because the original contract said middle school.
Well, and it's already been signed by the contractor. They've already executed it. If we make any changes to it, we just have to have them initiate the change, I think. I believe they would do that.
That's a good question. I hadn't considered that.
We know which building the roof goes on. We'll make sure it gets on.
Yeah.
Just put the address on there.
Yeah.
Just in case they miss it right there.
Well, Strode has a little metal up there.
They may go over there and just put it over the soccer field or something. We may not get it.
Okay, motion by Mr. Peardo.
Second.
Second by Ms. Hicks. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Dr. Kudak absent. Number 12, consider approval of pay application 1514-23 to Ross Tarrant Architects for the George Rogers Clark High School Gymnasium and Athletic Fields Project, BG 16-238, in the amount of $9,262.23.
As presented.
Move to approve as presented.
Motion by Mr. Peardo.
Second.
Second by Ms. Hicks. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Dr. Kudak absent. Number 13, consider approval of pay application 1829-06 to Ross Tarrant Architects for the George Rogers Clark High School Fieldhouse and Athletic Phase 3 project, BG 16-334, in the amount of $8,605.19. Is that right?
As presented, but I just comment to the board today, we had a pre-bid meeting at the high school. Next Tuesday, we have bid opening, just to, for an FYI, but as presented.
Okay.
Move to approve as presented.
Motion by Mr. Peridot.
Second.
Second by Ms. Hicks. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0. Number 14, consider approval of pay application number 11 to Codell Construction Contractors and Suppliers for the George Rogers Clark High School Gymnasium Athletic Fields Project, BG 16-238, in the total amount of $1,209,336.32.
As presented.
Move to approve as presented.
Motion by Mr. Peridot.
Second.
Second by Mr. Heisel. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Okay. Number 15, consider approval of pay application number 17 to Performance Services Incorporated for Guaranteed Energy Conservation Savings Project, BG 17-178, in the amount of $246,061.13. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay.
Just a quick comment, we did change that amount because we didn't feel the time, this month was the time that we released their retainage. They requested retainage release since we are at 95% substantial completion on the project, but we're still working on a rather substantial punch list, and we felt we should continue holding that retainage back. So we have asked the board to re-examine that figure and change that down to that lower figure.
Did Performance Services have an update?
Yes, I should have included that in there.
I missed that.
Did you? I'd be happy to send you one.
Okay. Or
Yeah,
it
we
might be
require
in
one.
there. I might just,
Right.
I just don't recall having.
I'll be happy to forward one to you. We require one monthly. But we are at 95% substantial completion.
Move to approve as amended.
Motion by Mr. Peridot.
Second.
Second by Mr. Heisel. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Number 16, consider approval of safety communications proposal from New Tech Systems Incorporated in the amount of $30,145.
Okay, just to attempt to be as brief as I possibly can. New Tech has offered a proposal to our superintendent in our district for a school safety initiative. Generally, we have 5 schools that have CareHawk intercom systems in the schools that allow us to interface into intercom systems throughout the school for warnings or emergent situations. This proposal would place 5 additional systems in our elementary schools that currently do not have the CareHawk systems. All of the servers would feed into a district-wide server that would allow anyone from within any of our schools or even at our central office to send out either pre-recorded, up to 50 pre-recorded emergent messages, or messages in general, live messages to any school, any groups of schools, or all of our schools, requiring that in situations that might require an emergent situation, like a lockdown, for example. This system would allow our superintendent, our school resource officers to, through the accesses of any cordless phone or telephone in our schools, to lock down our district immediately, just with a simple call, or our superintendent to notify one school or multiple schools with areas in which we might be affected with an emergent situation. The original proposal came in from New Tech several months ago for $60-some thousand, and they came back to us most recently and said they're willing to throw in their labor, which would cut that proposal in half, so that they could establish a site within central Kentucky to demonstrate the model. So the proposal in front of you for that system is for $145, and the original proposal was $60,700. So the entire labor package would be donated, or waived, I should say, by New Tech for what they claim would be the establishment of a central Kentucky model for the system working throughout the state. There is a representative here from New Tech if you have any specific questions, and we'd be happy to entertain any questions if you have any.
This is leaving school.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
Does this leave any
Does
school?
this leave any school
Without-
uncovered if this is approved?
Phoenix Academy. Phoenix Academy. They do not have any intercom system.
Only Phoenix Academy, and they have no intercom system within the building there at all.
One of these at the worst.
Okay.
But any system that we would purchase would be compatible with the system. It could be brought online. Of course, for whatever, this intercom system plus, they'd have to have a CareHoff base there too as well, right?
Yeah, you do not require a CareHawk system to have district-wide paging. There is an interface module that will take our server to any location that has an intercom with a little interface box at each location. So you currently have 4 schools, I think with 5 schools with the CareHawk system. You have 4 other schools that are supporting a different technology. But we will integrate with all those 4 schools as well as the 5 CareHawk schools to give you a district-wide solution.
One of the real neat features with this, and we're talking with Mr. Christie, Mr. Stump, our SROs, we've incorporated a emergency button in the schools with our new CareHawk systems. That's usually at the front desk, so if anything happens, they see something that's they don't like, something that's odd, they'll hit a button, it will send off a buzzer in the school. Now with this system, it will give the ability, once it ties in through the server, it will set off an alarm. We've had the conversation today with CareHawk, whether it goes to Mr. Christie's office, a couple of different SRO offices. That way at least they know that something's happened at Shear Elementary. We've had an emergency alarm, somebody needs to respond. To me, that's a big safety feature that lets a lot of your SROs and your administrators know what's going on.
Any questions, Ms. Hicks?
Generally, on any of these types of things, when you get to be the opportunity, you get the opportunity to be a model for the state. There are other things that comes with that. It's in the best interest of New Tech and others involved to make sure that that system operates properly and as efficiently as possible at all times. We're that way with our HVAC systems in the high school and a bunch of other things in the high school. We have people coming in regularly. In the last 2 weeks, we've had them in from New York State and Indianapolis looking at certain things. And it's been, I'll say this with the rep sitting here, it's been to our advantage to be the showpiece because they make sure that we stay a showpiece. We certainly have gotten better with the implementation of some of the radios we use, but we've gone from in a short year ago to me having 8 people designated in central office in case of an emergency. They're to call a certain school. That was our emergency broadcast system. We've gone now to having that capability from talking from radios, and now we'll have the capability of something, if it's something district-wide, from this office being able to come on the PA in every school and give directions, clear directions, or I hope we never have to use anything other than everybody in Clark County schools have a great summer at the end of the year, but it's there if you ever needed it for anything else.
And it could be used for severe weather emergencies.
Yeah, drills, earthquake drills, district-wide. I mean, there's things that.
But it can be used for a single school as well.
As a single school as
Okay.
well, or any group of schools.
Okay.
That's correct.
And in cases where, something may happen in an area, and you just need to notify 2 schools, you've got that ability to go to those 2 schools.
Rather than call 6 principals and have them find their way to their office to do the lockdown call to their school, the superintendent could make 1 call and those schools receive the message at the same time. And every classroom receives the message at the same time in those facilities.
Good. Would you like to make a
Move to approve safety communications proposals from New Tech Systems Incorporated, amount of $30,145.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Peridot, second by Ms. Hicks. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0.
Sneeze hurt all the way in France.
Yep.
Yeah. Now that's technology.
Okay, number 17, consider approval for the superintendent to bid the demolition of Aero Coatings building per KDE approval.
Okay, the superintendent wanted to put in front of the board your consideration to allow the superintendent to consult with Kentucky Department of Education Facilities Branch to pursue the process and possible bidding of the demolition of the Aerocoats building located next to Concrete, the future site of what the board was considering to be our preschool program in the future. And I say that only because the initial BG that we initiated through KDE for the purchase of that property and for the road construction behind that was for the preschool program, the intent of placing the new preschool program on that location. So that BG was phase 1 of the preschool project. We haven't been able yet to consult with KDE to inquire as to how they would expect us to proceed if the board were to support that proposal, whether it would be the second phase of the preschool project or whether it would be a BG all of its own for the demolition of that program, or that building, I'm sorry. One of the primary reasons we're bringing this to the board is because we've had some recent challenges with that building. As you're aware, we've had a number of homeless folks break into that building, cause a lot of destruction and damage. We found needles throughout that building, hypodermic needles throughout that building. Things have been stolen from the building. We've had wire stole from the building, and most recently we've had quite the cost, about $15,000 to repair and water line and concrete, because when they stole the live wiring out of that building, it created a ground short that melted the 4-inch water pipe connections supplying concrete. So we spent the entire Sunday, one Sunday morning in the rain, repairing the main water line to concrete because of the electrical lines that were stolen out of the Aerocoats building. And someone had to get hurt during that too, because there was a lot of sparks and things where they were trying to steal the copper plates and such out of that building. Now they're after the copper pipes. They're starting to break in and steal the copper water pipes out of the building. So it's a hazard. We're very concerned about the potential liability of someone getting hurt or killed in that facility. It's a liability to us because our architects has informed the board that the building is not suitable for renovation for a future preschool project, that it does not meet the 80% criteria that's required of KDE for renovation of a building. It exceeds that 80%. So the architect has informed the board that KDE will require you, if that is your interest still, to build a new facility on that site as opposed to renovating that old site. So it needs to come down sooner or later. Now, anticipating
We're just
that,
moving to bid, right, on this?
Yes,
we
that's
don't
all
want
we
the
do.
bid
If
reduced.
you
I
want the
move
bid,
the
just come back.
superintendent to bid demolition of the Aerocoats building per KDE approval. And we can accept the bid or not
Yes.
accept the bid.
Yes.
it was quoted for us for $180,000, just to ballpark it.
But we have to put it out to bid.
Yeah.
All right, you made a motion.
Yeah.
Wasn't there some discussion a few years ago about someone wanting to do the demolition just for the materials? Has that not materialized?
That's what this quote entailed as well, but the materials unfortunately aren't as valuable now as they might have been back then. Steel's gone down considerably. All of our wiring's been stolen, our copper pipes have been stolen. I mean, there's materials daily that's missing from that place that can be repurposed. So that quote that I shared with you at $180,000 was for the materials as well.
Okay, Mr. Peridot has made a motion, which was, you want to repeat that, because he was kind of quiet.
Basically as written.
As written,
Yeah.
okay. And I'll second that. All right, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Number 18, consider approval of change order 18-4 to Fayette Electrical Service Incorporated for the George Rogers Clark High School Gymnasium and Athletic Field Project. BG BG-16-238 in the amount of $5,903.19.
If the board will permit me, I can read about 5 sentences that will cover the next 3 change orders, if you'd like to present it that way. All right, summaries of the next 3 change orders. Change order 18-4, which is we're considering now, was to Fayette Electric to install pull boxes and conduit below the track from the stadium buildings to the inside of the track. This is for the future use of any additional scoreboards or other equipment needing power is provided, even years down the road. This will give a pathway without having to run overhead lines or disturb the track in the future event that we need that. So that was a change order that came out of the programming from the GRC gym and football stadium project, and that's what the architects are pursuing based on that programming that the folks that were involved in that program were requesting. The next change order, which will be 19-7, this is adjustments made to the finished grade work and storm system structures on the football field, also constructing a second long jump runway with takeoff boards, landing area, and striping, etc., because they asked for 2 long jumps, as you may recall that discussion, instead of the one that was initially designed in the project. The change order 19-8, this is also adjustments made to the finished grade work and storm system structures and changes to the grade lids to the structures themselves. And we have Ron from Ross Tarrant here if you have any additional questions, but those are the summaries of the next 3 change orders on your agenda.
Any
I
questions?
think more simply put, first one you're considering that we don't have a lot of choice on. That was a change in requirements on us.
Okay.
Has the work already been done on any of these?
No.
No.
But they're urgent. They're getting ready to be done, Ron, right?
Right, it's close. I mean, well, they're putting in curbs right now around the track, wanting to try to pave the track before Thanksgiving. And so we're trying to get this conduit in with your approval before that paving takes place.
Move to approve change order 18-4 to Fayette Electrical Service Incorporated for GRC High School Gymnasium Athletic Project BG-16-238 in the amount of $5,903.19.
And all these has come out of the construction contingency, Ron? That's the proposal, right? Your construction contingency.
Motion by Mr. Peridot.
Second.
Second by Ms. Hicks. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 4-0.
Move to approve change order 19.7 to Rising Sun Development Corporation for the GRC High School Gymnasium Athletic Project BG-16-238 in the amount of $10,715.68.
Motion by Mr. Peridot.
Second.
Second by Ms. Hicks. All those in favor say aye.
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 Motion carries 4-0.
Move to approve change order 19.8 to Rising Sun Development Incorporated for the GRC High School Gymnasium Athletic Project BG-16-238 in the amount of $2,944.55.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Peridot, seconded by Ms. Hicks. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. What'd you say,
I didn't
Scott?
hear, I only heard 2. Okay.
Aye.
Okay, yeah. All right, motion carries 4-0. Okay. Consider approval of change order 1-3 for project time extension number 2 to all contractors on the George Rogers Clark High School Gymnasium and Athletic Field Project BG-16-238.
That's just the change orders due to inclement weather that extends the contractual work 46 working days and 69 calendar days. That would now put your substantial completion date to January 22nd, 2020, and your final completion date to February 21st, 2020 for the GRC football stadium project due to inclement weather.
Having said that, they are still on schedule.
2020?
They're still.
February 2020.
That's the contractual date, but they're still on schedule right now to be at the
So
ready
next
work.
year, no football stadium for
No,
next year?
they're still on schedule to be ready, to be completed in July. This is just a contractual date that but they're ahead of the contractual dates.
And it is phased. We always had the football stadium being completed earlier than the gym. And that's exactly where we still are. So it'll be the football stadium that is moving on, and then the overall project completion date is the January date, but they're still moving forward with the idea of getting that ready in December. But contractually, this is where the date sets in terms of, any kind of liquidated damages or any kind of, setting dates for warranties and everything else.
Move to approve as written.
Okay, motion by Mr. Peridot.
Second.
Second by Ms. Hicks. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0. Consider approval of quote proposals from Quicksands Farms for the turf management plans for the high school baseball, soccer, and football fields for a total amount of $7,250.
This is the third year that we've contracted with Quicksand Farms for our field prep. This would involve sand work, grading for our soccer fields, both the main field and the practice field, reseeding of rye for the infield of our baseball, and our football fields in preparation for spring sports. And now's the time to get this done. This is the time of the year that we need to address this.
And this is general fund?
This would be your general fund, correct, as it has been for the last several years.
Was this in the budget?
Can't ask Alicia right now, but I'm gonna say that yes, it probably was, because this is at least the third year that we've done it, and if we've done it more than that, she budgets it in.
I'll remind the board too that at some point in the future, that several month future, we'll be coming to you asking for a capital funds request that'll transfer some of those capital funds back to the board for your, and this could be very well be one of those expenditures that we reimburse your general fund for.
Just tell him to do a better job on the football field this year.
We're trying. That Bermuda's hard to deal with.
Oh.
We could,
It's hard when it's pouring the rain and they're playing a football game on it. You have to.
Well,
It is what it
we
is.
could have grown more grass this year than what we did. I don't know. That's just my opinion, but I just know I cut my grass a lot, and I walk by the football field and I don't see much on it. So
This was a tough year for Bermuda around the state.
well, and it will not be all that long till we won't need this.
Middle school.
Middle school's still late.
Oh, that's right.
Middle school wants bluegrass on that field.
Yeah,
so
that we'll be coming back at a later date, probably with the proposal to remove the Bermuda and go to bluegrass.
So
like we
both
are.
football and soccer can play on that field. That's what they want. I think it's a reasonable request. It's gonna be a lot cheaper in the long run.
We'll get a lot less wear. I mean, you won't have as much demand on that field then to where bluegrass could hold up.
The downside is that they say, well, lose the season on that field once we convert, so that'll take some planning.
We won't do anything until we have the new facilities where we can work through that. And we've got Justice Field where we've overseeded it. We've done he's worked with us on that and working with us with our fertilizers. That field's it's the nicest fields we've got in the district right now.
It is. It's great shape.
So I'm guessing overseeding is a good thing.
Yeah. If you want real thick for grass for like playing sports on.
And 80 tons of sand on a soccer field, that's a lot of sand, but that's what that Bermuda likes. That's what it needs.
That explains my problem. Cash is definitely allergic to bluegrass.
Move to approve as written.
Motion by Mr. Peridot.
So the 294455 includes all three of those added together, right?
The 7250.
Oh, I'm sorry.
$7,250.
Yes, okay.
Second.
Includes all of those goods.
It's getting late. It's getting late.
I know. Okay, motion by Mr. Peridot, second by Ms. Ritchie. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0.
Number 23, consider approval of grant initiatives resulting from the on-table community forum in collaboration with the Clark County Community Foundation.
Oh, you can't hear?
Who's presenting this?
Okay, you're there, you're back. That's, Scott was down to talk about this. I would say to you on this one, I did some trainings. We talked about those. The Rhino door stops in the trainings, we've been told now that those are in violation of at least three building codes and another concern, and another concern that we had going into it. So that's kind of off the table. I have someone coming to talk to us and look at us and do some sampling of our windows for the protection coating. I would recommend to you, one of the things that we've talked about when we talk about with Clark Community, with the Clark County Community Foundation, we go back to item number 16, where we just did the safety communications. I think that's a huge piece of something that they would be interested in helping with that maybe. That may be something that we can recoup some of that. That's a safety issue that addresses every school in our district. I would move that we look at talking with them and adding that piece.
So should we table that and wait for that discussion?
Yeah. I don't have anything else to report to that right now. We've got somebody coming with the windows, with the window safety film and the glass replacement to talk about that.
Well, I think since they're giving the money and we're cutting things out and looking to add things in, we should wait and have their response from that as well. I have my thoughts.
Yeah.
I move that we table item number 22.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Peardo, second by Ms. Hicks. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0. Item number 24, consider approval of final version of the Choose Clark County marketing brochure.
Hey, there was sorry, you're breaking up a little bit, but there was a version of this that was in your packet, and hopefully this is the final version. And I was hoping to get board approval so we could move forward on initial printing of this document. And I apologize, I'm breaking up half the time here.
You're fine. We're here and you're fine.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Christie, has schools, human resources, and people like that seen this? And
Yes.
like what they see?
Yes.
Okay.
The final version was put together by a group of folks, and 2 board members and central office staff.
So it comes with approval of
Yeah.
a wide version of people in the schools?
Yes.
Have the details of printing been developed, worked out?
No details as far as printing. We've not talked about printing or anything yet, other than we just wanted to get approval to go to them. And if you need us to bring that back, I don't have a cost on it. Mr. Heisel, you got a cost on printing?
I have not yet. And so that would be the next step, is to then get some quotes on printing this in various quantities.
Yes.
What are we tied to here if in 5 years we want to develop something else? I mean,
We're not tied to anybody. This can be done, but this
can be,
this committee can take it from there.
So we do
this was pretty much all in-house
after this right here. Okay, good. All right. I move to approve final version Choose Clark County marketing brochure.
Motion by Mr. Peardo.
Second.
Second by Ms. Hicks. She beat you by a second.
Oh, man, it's over 3,000 miles.
I know. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries 4-0. Number 25, consider approval for board members elect and superintendent to attend the KSBA winners. I can never say that.
Symposium.
Thank you all. November 30th through December 1st. What?
It's late.
I can't say
Don't let me
that.
stop you. Go ahead. Keep
I'm
going.
done. Oh, at the Louisville Marriott East, sorry.
I move that we approve for board members-elect and superintendent to attend the KSBA Winter Symposium November 30th through December 1st, 2018 at the Louisville Marriott East.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Hicks, second by Mr. Peridot. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0. Okay, item number 26 is consider approval of board attorney RFQ and advertisements. Mr. Elkins has submitted us his resignation to move on to other career opportunities at the first of the year. So, that is why this is on there. We now have to, but you're going to stay with us until the 30th of December, correct?
Sure.
Okay.
Or the 31st, as the case might be.
Yep.
No, he's out. The 30th, he's done.
No, I'm not going to stay with
He's
us
taking-
on New Year's
he's
Eve.
taking
Why don't we
vacation
have
on
a
the
meeting
31st?
New Year's Eve.
I'll join Scott by teleconference.
Yeah. So, that's why that's on there.
And so the documents that were in the packet, we pulled from past RFQs and then just put blanks in there for the dates that, if all that seems reasonable and the wording is still good, we can just fill those dates in as the required response times.
What's the timeline? I mean, without the dates, what's the timeline?
That's up to the board. I think we're required 14 days. I have to check.
Probably try to mirror what we did in the past.
I'd have to look and see what it said in here, what the timeline was. I'm thinking before we did a 30-day, but I don't know that.
What do you recommend, Mr. Elkins?
You know, I don't really have an opinion without an opportunity to look at it. I really just don't have an answer to the question. Why don't you bound to some timeline?
I mean, it doesn't seem that it would be the same guidelines as employees, advertising for employee positions, because this is a little different. But I don't know.
My proposal would be, my recommendation, proposal, whatever you want to call it, would be that we do this and advertise in a span of time that would allow us to gather the information so that at the organizational meeting, this board can look at the applications, determine them from there, whether you want to set up interviews, how do you want to go from there. I think it probably should be the new board. You know,
That would make sense,
that
but
would
you're
do the
not gonna
hiring. That's who
have-
they're going to be working for.
But you
so.
won't have legal representation for them for.
We could retain somebody for that, though.
We could, yeah, you could
We've done
retain
that before.
somebody for the night. We have done that in the past.
I'll support you as long as you need the support.
So if you all
Can we
direct
form
me
a
to do it, I can
county
get the applications together so that they would be made available to the board prior to the, if you put the timeline in there, I can make them available to the current and new board members by before December the 30th. So that you have time to review them before the.
Can they be made available to new board members before they're sworn in?
Yeah, they're not taking any action on anything, but I mean, I'll check with, I can talk with Mr. Elkins more about that, and when to share the applications. I can talk with my KSBA attorney too. I mean, over the hiring of I can check with him on that too. I don't think that would be, they're not taking any action until they're sworn in.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, they need to see it.
Or I can hold them till everybody's sworn in and you have your board in place. That doesn't matter.
Just meet them down there.
I was just trying to have it set up to where you have any interested parties, you have their information prior to the new board taking effect, so that it can be made available to them at any time you want to.
I certainly think it would be good to have responses back there in mid to late December, so we could have the opportunity to review potential applicants.
You just give me the dates to fill in, and that's the way we'll advertise it.
We all think.
If you run it for 30 days.
That's up to the 13th of December, that'd be to the 13th or 14th of December, 30 days would be.
Wait, what? What'd you say?
If you say 30 days, today's the 13th, so you're looking at mid-December before you would have them back if you put a 30-day thing on there.
So you want to do, what are you saying, 14?
You're gonna tell me how long you want to advertise for. I'll make sure that it's legal.
Well, that's the only thing I'm worried about is any kind of legality or whatever when we get to the applications in. Can prospective new members
Before we
involved in
get the
that?
applications back, I'll get that, and I'll share it with the board.
Is that something that we review in closed session? So I mean, is that an open session or just a work session?
We had the interviews in open session before.
It's open session.
It's open
I was
session.
thinking that we had them in open session for some reason. I didn't know, so. But we couldn't take any action on how.
Until the new board's
sworn in, so. I think I'm fine with having them by the end of December, but I wouldn't feel comfortable reviewing until after. That's just my thoughts on it.
You can put a deadline on them, and we can keep them put together and rain sealed until you all are ready for me to duplicate them and pass them out to you.
Yeah, your last day of school is like 24th or 23rd or something right there, right? Christmas Eve or something.
Christmas Eve, I think we're here on Christmas Eve this year.
I know this year is something different, so I think
Close
just,
to it.
you make that a deadline, you have them in at that time.
21st is our last day of school. 21st of December is our last day of school.
And then we'll probably have a board meeting the first week of January.
Second week is what we ended up saying today, wasn't it?
Well, and they haven't set the actual date of swearing in. Now, they could go to and be sworn in individually through the clerk or at the courthouse.
The first is on a Tuesday, is that, okay.
So they haven't scheduled the swearing in like we did last year. They haven't scheduled that yet.
Okay.
So, they won't, we won't know until after the 18th of this month.
Okay.
That's going to be.
And I don't think you have any legal timelines involved. I think because it's professional services, you don't even have to bid it. I think that's just more a product of looking for a competitive quote.
I say run it through the 7th or the 14th, whichever one. Doesn't matter to me. Because we really won't need them before then anyway.
You're wanting to get the applications by when then?
The 7th or the 14th, either one. That gives you 2.5 weeks.
If we don't pass them out till after everybody's sworn in, that gives me 2 weeks to hold them, is what that does. Gives me 2 weeks to copy them and keep them sealed here. I mean, they'll come in sealed, we won't even open them.
They're just gonna sit around. You might as well just push the date back if the thought is to let the other new bid board members be part of the review process.
You recall, I think, that what you did in previous years was you just did a request, for qualifications, had them submit letters of interest to Scarlett Ryan, and then you reviewed those, set up some interview schedule, and conducted it here in open session without any bid procedure, which I don't think, I can tell you that bid procedure is not required here. I see that it's being suggested, but I don't think it's required. Because it's professional service.
The bid procedure being requested, how?
I don't think that you have to. I don't think you have to receive sealed bids here to determine who you're going to hire. when you're contracted for professional services with an attorney.
I'm just saying if they were to come back to us, we'd just keep them, when they're marked, just keep them together and turn them over to the board at one time, is what I was doing, you know. Or if they want me to make copies, 6 sets of copies, I can have them copied, and, you know, and whenever you tell me, I'll have them copied and put in a sealed envelope and put in your mailbox if you pick up. Just whenever y'all tell me you want to do it. We've got the RFP here, just need dates to put in it. That's assuming you're going to request the same things that you requested in the past. That's a letter of interest, a summary of the experience, especially in educational law, and an outline of your proposal for services to be offered. The board will conduct interviews with prospective individuals or firms following receipt of the letters of interest. This is the way your last report.
Okay, once they're sworn in though, they can have access, right? Or do they have to take office?
No, that's a.
What was the question?
Once they're sworn in, could they see them then? Or do they have to take office beforehand?
I don't think they can be sworn in. They take office at the moment they're sworn in.
They do? Okay. Because some of these talking about swearing in December.
Sometimes what you see is a public ceremonial swearing in, but that's not actually the official.
Okay. That was my question, is if they were swearing someone in December, how was that going to be possible? Gotcha. I don't really know. Would y'all just pick a day?
I'm good just having them give out to board members on the first meeting. That's the way I see it.
Organizational meeting.
Organizational meeting.
I'll turn them over to the board that night.
Are we good with that, Mr. Heisel?
Works for me.
Do you all, on that night, do you want me to go and have 6 copies or 5 copies made? I have all the copies made, or just let you all open them up that night, or do you want me to go on and open them up and have copies made for everybody and put them in an envelope and just give each of you a complete set of
They
copies?
can be put in the packet by then, can't they?
Yeah. That's up to you all.
Yeah, I'd just say do that. Just put the personal packet.
Okay.
The deer in the headlight look, they're like, oh gosh, both of them. Okay, so you got what you need? Oh, so I guess we need to make a motion. Do we need to make a motion? Consider approval of board attorney.
I move that we approve the board attorney RFQ and related advertisements.
Motion by Ms. Hicks.
Second.
Second by Mr. Pearno. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carries 4-0. Okay, we got it here, right? Consent agenda items. This will be items 27 through 40. And a motion will be in order to approve these items. School fundraiser request, item number 27. Item number 28, acknowledge Booster PTO support club agreements for 2018-2019. Acknowledge SPDM minutes. Acknowledge community eligibility program. Acknowledge KDE accountability update. Approval of employee leave of absence. Acknowledge the notice of personnel action report. Number 34, acknowledge monthly energy report. Number 35, acknowledge the Clark County Clerk's motor vehicle tax report. Item number 36, acknowledge the Clark County Sheriff's report. Item number 37, acknowledge the monthly financial report. Item number 38, acknowledge the general fund budget summary report. Item 39, acknowledge the contingency budget report. Item 40, acknowledge the balance sheet report.
I move that we acknowledge or approve items 27 through 40 as recorded in the minutes.
Motion by Ms. Hicks and seconded by Ms. Pearno. Mr. Pearno? I'm sorry.
You'd be all right.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0.
Move to authorize payment of salaries and accounts payable.
Second.
Mr. Pearno and Ms. Hicks. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0.
Adjourns.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Before we do that, I'd just like to thank Mr. Napier and Mr. Kaysen for setting up this teleconference. Appreciate their efforts on this, and apologize for any inconvenience to the board.
They said they'd like to have a little souvenir of the Eiffel Tower, so bring one of those back for them.
If I can get one,
And I want a receipt with the money coming out of your pocket, too, so I'll make sure.
Now that's coming from me.
Is anybody gonna second this motion?
Second.
Second by Mr. Peridot.
For the winter symposium, you need to.
Can we vote? Can we vote? Then we don't have to listen.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you did.
No.
All those in favor say aye.
Usually don't drag that one out very long.
I was trying not to. All opposed?
Just need to let Arlene know.
Motion carries 4-0.
We're gonna be able to attend. And then once.
And we're adjourned at what
We'll get you the
time?
packet.
We are adjourned at
And, set your room.
10:05 p.m.
AP Rosie for this one.
It's got the list of classes.
Do we need to show both times in the minutes?
What time is it, Scott?
4:05 a.m.
10:05 for us and 4:05 for Scott. Good night.
Good night. Bye.
Bye.